Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. I'm Chip. You can call me Chip, as my name says. And with me is the one and only Mr. Chase Avier. Um, do you want to? I don't know. Like I don't. I believe people already know who you are, Chase. But do you want to give yourself a little bit of introduction? Yeah, bad meat.
Yeah, my name is Chase Avier, rhymes with behavior, bad behavior. And I got to meet Chip over at Vegan Campout in the UK. And that was a whole bunch of fun. I think I spent most of my time hanging out with Chip. And it was really cool because we were, our tents out of like 1,000 or more than 1,000 tents. There were me and Chip were right next to each other coincidentally. So that was funny.
That was such a coincidence that we had our tents right next to each other. By the way, man, you snore. I gotta say,
I I bet.
yeah, because I was like I would hear you from the tent, but of course if I put my earplugs on,
Oh man.
nothing matters.
We'll have to do something about that. Just close it up.
Yeah,
But
I mean, like,
yes,
do you wear those nose strips? By the way, have you ever tried those nose
I
strips?
haven't tried that, but I guess I should.
I tried them. They don't really help. You still snore a bit. I guess it depends on the person. I think they're useful if you sleep on your back or something. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
But
So
anyways, so yeah, we're trying to reconnect because it's been a few months since we hung out, and I follow all your videos. I'm a super fan.
nice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for all your hard work. I know it's uh exhausting sometimes dealing with the anti-vegans on a daily basis like you do.
Yeah, it is. It is exhausting. Have you had this, by the way? Like when I do advocacy, when I sit and do outreach, it's all good. Everything's. I mean, I'm sitting with the sign. I have the conversations with people, but then if I go into like a supermarket or I enter into a conversation with somebody and they start recommending a product that has animal products in it or something, and I'm like, should I tell this person I'm vegan and let them um like should I tell them, or should I just be like, okay, thank you for the recommendation or something, and ignore it? Of course, like how would you handle that situation?
I'm pretty outspoken about it. I relish any opportunity to speak out um loudly or softly.
I agree with you. I'm a like there's days when I'm the same most of the time, but there's days when I'm like, I just don't
Yeah.
want to discuss with people again. Because like I was wearing a T-shirt at some point that was saying, "Plant protein is animal protein." Mine, oh, literally what my cap says just now. And I was walking around the supermarket, and somebody stopped me, and they went like, "Oh, super nice T-shirt. Oh, I agree with you." And I'm like, "Are you vegan?" And he's like, "No, but I'm trying to be." Okay. Oh. And then I had to have a conversation with that person. What's so difficult? Why do you think veganism is all that? And in a supermarket. And I'm like, I can't stop. If I start this conversation, I can't just let them off the hook like that and be like, yeah, whatever.
Well, you if you carry those cards everywhere, like I carry some cards with resources everywhere, just hand them a card and be on your way.
That's a good idea. I should have. I actually, the cards that I have are good, but I feel like maybe it would be interesting that with the cards, I attach some like quick info on it, like what is veganism or how you can be vegan or stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Um, or at least a little phrase or something. But yeah, so a little bit more background about me. I've been vegan for 13 years and been to like 200 protests and
Wow.
helped rescue animals from slaughterhouses and been to jail for animals. So we're gonna get into some health studies that I found and made a compilation of, and then we'll talk about some different philosophies that we have, and it might get pretty controversial. So stick around, everybody, if you want a good show. But I like Mr. Chip because he's very supportive of activists, and people can have different small disagreements about things, but we are all on board with the same main message, and that's what's most important. And um, and I've changed a lot, and so maybe I'll change again, but we'll have a good conversation.
Yeah, I think that's what I appreciate about you, that you're open-minded, and then we can have conversations easily with each other. It's not, and I think both of us are not stuck in one mentality or the other and holding on to our teeth with it. We're just open-minded people who want to have conversations and want to do best for the animals, right?
Yeah, and we both eventually want to ban meat. So there you go.
Yeah, and all animals, not just all animal products, not just meat.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, your video is a bit choppy. I'm not sure if it's just for me. Um,
Hmm. Can anybody post in the comments if it's choppy?
yeah, is it choppy just for me, everybody, or is it? Because if it's just for me, I'll look at my end if there's something.
I think my settings are set at 720 high definition. Should I set it lower? Standard definition 480?
Martin says it's a bit choppy. Um, you can set the resolution for your screen for your camera.
Yeah, inside of StreamYard, I can change it to full definition 1080 or keep it at 720 or go down to 480. Maybe if I go 480, it'll be not as clear, but it'll be less choppy.
Did you do that now? Because now it's okay. Now it seems okay. It's the
No,
audio is fine.
I
I
didn't
guess it
change
goes in and
anything.
out.
It might just be that I live in the forest, so we don't have the best reception.
Do you use the satellite link? The what's
I'm
it
not
called?
I'm not using Wi-Fi right now. I'm plugged into the Ethernet. So we'll just hope for the best, I guess.
Can you try the 480p? It's still a bit choppy. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll try that. And sorry, my throat is hurting me right now.
That's what you get for being a vegan.
Yeah. Okay, so now it's at 480.
Didn't really improve. The
Nothing helping.
the audio is great, by the way. The audio is fine. The video is a bit either delayed or choppy. But
Mm,
now it's like just low quality, and I think it might be okay.
okay. We'll see how it goes. Do you want to
Yeah, let's
open
just
up the
yeah,
document?
let's just go through the document. I think it's more important because people don't need to look at us, and they need to look at the document. So by the way, everybody, for context, Chase sent me this document that he has with all the vegan studies for health, and we're going to go through it and make the top 10 best sources to maintain, well, for a plant-based diet, and maybe top 10 best sources against animal products. So let's go. Okay.
Yeah, so here you can see, actually, if you want to scroll back up real quick, if you want to see, and we should be able to post this in the chat, right, for everybody if you want to
That's a good point. Yeah.
open this document or download this document. Maybe follow along with us, like just watching the video. But if you want to save this document for later, um, it should be in the chat or in the description.
I'll put it in the description. I placed it in the chat right now, but I'll put it in the description also. Yeah.
Okay, so scroll back to the top real quick.
Yes.
So vegan diet is healthy. There's 18 links to position statements or peer-reviewed scientific studies, and then long life all-cause mortality. There's 44 links. Cancer, 65 links. Heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, hypertension, stroke, kidney disease.
Are all these links for veganism specifically, for like plant-based diet specifically, or are they like for example, high blood pressure causes like arteriosclerosis and it's caused by high saturated fat, or
Well,
by
we'll
amounts
have
of
to open
cholesterol?
up. we'll have to open up some of them, but a lot of it, you see vegan diet for kids and
Yeah.
athletes, and excuse me. So some of the links will be talking about how a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet is better for your health. Some of them will be talking about how meat or dairy or eggs is bad for your health. Um, and then, so what we'll try to do here is not go through the whole list, but we're just giving everybody a glimpse of it real quick because there's, it's a really long document.
I see that
But
51 pages, huh?
yeah, so there's 335 or something of these links, and it took me like more than a year to make this document. But um, yeah, so Chip, I need to save my voice a little bit for a minute. So if you want to talk
Yeah.
and scroll through, and if anything jumps out at you, and we'll save it or talk about it.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one. So I know the British Dietetic Associations confirms this. I have it also. I use it, but it's just like more than anything a page. It's not necessarily a study or anything. So I would rather choose studies or
Yeah,
empirical evidence in a sense because we don't want to. Whenever we are discussing against somebody who um, doesn't hold this position that veganism can be healthy, I'd rather have the most empirical evidence so that they don't ever, they don't
yeah.
ever
So
have a leg to stand on or something to give
yeah,
us,
so they
to
don't.
leave them no room.
Yeah, so they don't say it's an appeal to authority or something like that. Yeah. So, okay, so scroll down a little bit and let's see if in this section there's any actual good
This
studies
is
that
the
you're.
Yeah, so this is the Academy of Dietetics and Nutrition and Dietetics in PubMed, but we already saw that one before. I am gonna copy this one and save it because I do think that this is a good one to have in general. Like if you're ever debating somebody, even
Yeah,
even though the statement is expired, I still think it's a good statement and it's
yeah.
good to have. Okay. This doesn't look like if properly planned a vegan diet can provide all the nutrients you need. Okay.
Yeah, and you can see the link itself says Kaiser Permanente, so it's a position statement. Same with Heart and Stroke Foundation next. So this whole section might mostly not be studies, but rather position statements.
Oh, that's already very good, huh? That's like Health Direct Australia, Stanford University. Okay, that's a good one. This is British Nutrition Foundation. Vegan diets are nutritionally adequate across all life stages of the life cycle and can provide the nutrients we need. I think I'm gonna save this one also. Okay. Plant-based meats and milk present a number of benefits. This looks like a study, huh? Present a number, including generally favorable nutritional profiles, aging and weight loss, and muscle synthesis. Do you,
Yeah,
by the way, Chis, have any favorite studies or sources here that we should look at?
I do, and I've kind of put them in order in each section, and you'll see, like, this next section, the first one.
The the long life all cause mortality. Vegetarian
You'll
diets are
s
associated,
Go ahead and read it.
vegetarian diets are associated with beneficial effects of the blood lipid profile and a reduced risk of negative health outcomes, including diabetes, ischemic heart disease, and cancer risk. It's an umbrella review. I think let's open it up. I think I might need, if I open it up, to share. I need to stop that. and,
And one thing you might have noticed is that it said vegetarian diets, right?
yeah.
So some of this is actually talking about vegan diets, I believe, but you have to find that in the details.
Okay, so it says that this umbrella review identified 20 meta-analyses of observational and interventional research with 34 health outcomes. The majority of meta-analyses were classified as moderate of high or high quality reviews. That's pretty good, based on AmStar 2 criteria. I actually don't know what AmStar 2 criteria means, but Yeah. By comparison with omnivorous diets, vegetarian diets were associated with a significantly lower concentration of blood total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, and HDL cholesterol. But the thing is, when they say vegetarian diets, I think I have heard this term where vegetarian diets mean not necessarily what we think it means, but rather like pure vegetarian, like made of strictly plant-based stuff.
Yeah,
But
because vegetarian diets, like they might mean, depending on which study we're looking at, it might mean vegetarian as you and I know it, where it
yeah,
includes milk and eggs and stuff. But sometimes it's talking about vegetarian diets, which can include vegetarian and vegan. Sometimes they clarify by saying lacto ovo vegetarian, stuff like this. Um, so I'm not sure if it doesn't say in the abstract here, I think about vegans specifically.
let's see if we open it.
Yeah, in the upper right you should be able to open the full article, which I should have had the full article instead of the PubMed.
I mean, it's good. PubMed is nice because you can put a PMID in comments or stuff like that. It's always useful. Oh, but you need the access for the full one, huh?
Oh, okay. So I feel like maybe we shouldn't include this one because we can't, the average person can't access it, and it doesn't mention vegan by name. It just says vegetarian diets.
Very good.
Well,
Very good idea.
skip to the next one.
Okay, let me.
I mean, even though it was an umbrella review of 20 analyses.
Yeah, it's a pity. Yeah, because we can't. Okay, plant predominant diets can play a major role in reversing the obesity and chronic disease epidemics. They may stabilize and even reverse type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Systematic review of randomized controlled trials and trials of non-randomized experimental designs. I usually have an issue with. Let me share again. This is annoying that I have to stop sharing and share again every time. Health outcomes associated with this is plant predominant. Okay, but this is also plant predominant, huh? To assess the efficacy of a plant predominant, vegan, vegetarian, plant-based whole foods diets in treating obesity and its main cardiometabolic sequelae. I don't know what this word is.
And don't ask me because I'm not anywhere near a science person.
It says a condition which is the consequence of a previous disease or injury. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian or a doctor or nothing. I'm just some dude.
And this is diabetes. Yeah, I see what you mean. I also, I'm skimming through this, but I'm not. I won't claim that I understand a lot of it. I'm trying to see if results. Plant-based diets in general demonstrated improved weight control and metabolic outcomes related to lipids, cardiovascular endpoints, blood pressure, insulin sensitivity, A1C, and fasting glucose, and the lower risk of diabetes compared with usual diets, and in some cases, standard health-oriented diets such as American Health Association, American Diabetic Association, and Mediterranean diets. Interesting. So had a lower risk of diabetes compared. Okay, yeah. Part of a healthy preliminary studies suggest plant predominant diets practiced as a part of healthy lifestyle interventions may stabilize or even reverse. What was it? What was DM2? Because they mentioned here diabetes mellitus type 2 and I guess cardiovascular disease. Yeah, and cardiovascular disease. The acceptability and sustainability of plant predominant diets were generally similar to other health oriented diets. I mean, that's something, right? That were generally similar. Plant predominant diets can play a major role in reversing the obesity and chronic disease. In the setting of sustained lifestyle intervention program, they may arrest or even reverse. What was this again?
Diabetes.
Diabetes, yeah, type 2, and cardiovascular disease. May arrest or even reverse, yeah. Further higher level randomized controlled trials are needed to confirm and expand on these findings. Yeah, I don't know if I would put also this one in as a high,
Okay.
because it feels like it's more of a incidental thing rather than right. People who
Okay.
start being on a plant-based diet also usually end up trying to be healthier, and yeah, I'm
So
guessing maybe that's it.
this next one is from the twins study, which I think was a randomized control trial.
The vegan cohort exhibit. Okay, let's open this one. Oh, this is going to take a while if we open each one.
Or well, if it's a cohort, I don't know if that means a prospective cohort study.
Let's open it up. Unveiling the epigenetic impact of vegan versus omnivorous diet on aging. Insights from the twin nutrition study. Okay. The study examined the impact of entirely plant-based or healthy omnivorous diet over 8 weeks on blood DNA methylation in paired twins. Various measures of epigenetic age acceleration were assessed, along with system-specific effects: inflammation, heart, hormone, liver, and metabolic. Methylation surrogates of clinical metabolite and protein markers were analyzed to observe diet-specific shifts. Guessing it's
I'm thinking probably not this one. Because so let's go back to the main page to the document, just because I think it also helps if it says, I think keywords we're looking for are like meta-analysis and vegan.
Yeah, you're right. Let's I think, you know what? I think we're going to change things up a bit. I think we're just going to select first the couple of ones, because otherwise if I switch between them, it's going to be a little bit annoying. So
Okay.
I'm just going to select a couple of them because you already pasted some, and we're going to look at them afterwards. So it says, with increasing intake of whole grains, vegetable, fruits, nuts, the risk of all-cause mortality decreased. Higher intake of red meat and processed meat was associated with an increased risk of all-cause mortality in a linear dose-response meta-analysis. Optimal consumption of risk-decreasing foods results in a 56% reduction of all-cause mortality, whereas consumption of risk-increasing foods is associated with a twofold increased risk of all-cause mortality. Okay, this seems like a good one to open up, and it feels like it's hitting two things there, because it's also mentioning red meat. Although I think for red meat, we always have the statement from World Health Organization.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the World Health
Although people
Organization.
don't really trust it for some reason.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Okay, plant protein was associated with a lower risk of all-cause and cardiovascular disease mortality. Replacement of foods high in animal protein with plant protein sources could be associated with longevity. An additional 3% energy from plant proteins a day was associated with a 5% lower risk of death from all causes. Interesting. Also,
I kind of like that because it's got percentages,
yeah.
And it's a
Okay.
systematic review and meta-analysis of prospective cohort studies.
Replacing animal protein with plant protein for aspect of sustainability may also be a public health strategy to lower the risk of cardiovascular disease mortality and type 2 diabetes. Okay, we'll open this one also. Why not? I feel like I feel there's so many of these studies. It's really useful to have them because they all kind of say the same thing, which is very useful because, repetition and studies is always important, right? Replication. So it's always useful to have multiple studies showing the same thing, because
Yeah.
substitution of plant-based protein for animal-based protein might prevent all-cause and cardiovascular disease-specific mortality, right? What I was saying. Plant protein intake is irreversibly. Maybe I should open this one also, just so that we look at it quickly and then we put it somewhere. I feel like maybe these four that we said kind of say the same thing, and maybe it would be interesting, especially since they're systemic reviews. It would be interesting to put them under one, just that it reduces all-cause mortality and cardiovascular disease-specific mortality, as they mentioned here.
Mhm.
Plant protein intake is irreversibly associated with all-cause and cardiovascular disease mortality. Our findings support current dietary recommendations to increase intake of plant protein in place of animal protein. Interesting. Okay, we'll also open this one. But Again, all of them say kind of the same thing.
Yeah, there's a lot, you know. So, and if
Maybe
we're
we
gonna,
shouldn't go through all of them, yeah, because then there's
yeah,
it's
if those ones are kind of saying that, yeah, maybe we can move on because I kind of don't want to spend too much time on the same stuff because we also want to cover like vegan athletes and vegan kids.
that's a good point. Yeah, let's go to that. A vegan
But
athlete.
maybe we should go to the next section, not just skip to that part. Yeah. So, um, I think the next
Yeah,
section
because
should
this is
be
longevity and mortality. Yeah, cancer.
cancer. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna open these. So high intake of red and processed meat is associated with significant increased risk of colorectal, colon, and rectal cancer. I think this is pretty.
Pretty good.
I mean, to my knowledge, it's been established for a while now. It's not new.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, but I mean, it might. I don't know. There's a lot of people who think red meat is fine, but processed meat is bad, and so it's good that it says red meat is, uh, it says high intake, as opposed to like average intake. Some that might be problematic if we're trying to make a top 10 list.
That's a good point. Yeah. Prospective cohort study. I'm also gonna open this one. Okay. The evidence in favor of a link between red and processed meat and colorectal cancer is convincing. This seems like an article, which is good.
And then the next thing is the
2.5.
World Health Organization.
Yeah, this is a good one to have anyway. I'll just put it there. I'll just put it in there.
If I were you, I'd grab that first or second one though that we had looked at because it was a or
This
or
one.
was it this one? Yeah, maybe because it's a
I haven't opened
meta-analysis.
it though, but the reality. Okay, yeah. I think how we should do this because I don't think like I'm looking at studies. None of us are like super experienced, and I don't know if anybody in the chat is interesting. Anybody watching is interested in seeing this. So what we're
Mhm.
going to do is actually going to copy the studies, and then I'll look at them and then post the.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Because it
Yeah,
looks like we might not have time because we wanted to talk about other stuff also, and this is a long
exactly,
document. But yeah,
exactly.
okay, so we can even
Okay, so
move now. If you slow scroll, in this same section, you'll find parts about, well, I guess the World Health Organization already talked about chicken and turkey and stuff there, but that's processed. But um, so there's some parts in here that talk about chicken, and yeah, so this next one right here that you're looking at the top,
yeah,
high consumption of well done fried or barbecued meats was associated with increased risk of colorectal, pancreatic, and prostate cancer. And this includes beef, pork, fish, and poultry.
yeah. So I'm thinking because the way it happens to me is when I make a video, I have a conversation with the person. Like obviously the knowledge, we all kind of know the knowledge about what the recommendations are, how it's healthier to be on a plant-based diet and all that. Um, when I make a video and I make a claim in a video, then I have to research sources to back my claim. I think this is a good document to go with. Um, yeah. Well, it sounds kind of weird to say that, but I don't. I just to be clear, I don't just search for sources to back my claims. I also search for sources on the opposite to make
Mhm.
sure that my claim isn't. Uh,
Yeah,
I don't know.
and so if you want to like double check on any of this stuff, you can before you finalize the list and stuff. This one we just read was from cancer.gov.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, so
a good one.
there's parts about eggs in here and cancer as well.
Oh yeah, people. Well, that's a good one because people always mention eggs and they're like, "Oh, eggs are so healthy." What do you mean? Eggs are the most healthy? No, they're not.
And same with
Um,
dairy. So if you
yeah,
slow scroll, I mean, this one looks good. Studies show 46 to 88% reduced risk of colorectal cancer following a plant-based diet. It doesn't say
Mm.
meta-analysis or anything, but it's good that it's got numbers in there.
I mean, this alone should be an indication. The fact that there's so many studies kind of saying the same thing as I said before, it should be an indication that um,
Okay,
the
so look at this one. High intake of red meat and low intake of poultry are associated with an increased risk of esophageal squamous cell carcinoma. It doesn't read very well, you know. It's like because you can't understand a lot of those words, you know.
I mean,
Uh,
carcinoma is cancerogenic. We all know that, I guess.
I just kind
And
of want to make sure we've got some for chicken.
yeah, because a lot of people think eating chickens is somehow okay, like for the health. Um, renal cell carcinoma. Okay, I'm gonna look into this one. I'm curious about it. Associated with mutagens may play a role in pancreatic cancer development. I think this one, but I don't like this idea at high temperature. I don't want to give
Okay.
too much.
Yeah, we can keep
Uh,
scrolling until we hit the okay, so this next meta-analysis of case control studies, red meat, poultry, and processed meat is associated with an increased risk of kidney cancer, 22% higher risk of renal cancer. So that one might be
this
good.
one, yeah. All meat and red meat was associated. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right, we might be able to. Okay, so now milk was associated with an increased risk of breast cancer, but I think
That,
if you open it, it's only for a specific group of people and it didn't apply to others. So it's not just a study saying across the board average or anything. But this next one looks pretty good.
wait, I'm looking through this one.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, this is a good one. No, it's a good one. It says long-term consumption of non-fermented and fermented dairy products and risk of breast cancer by estrogen receptor status. So it's what do you call it? Ah, I'm spacing out on the name. Well, anyway, let's move on. I'll copy this one also because I thought it was a good
Okay.
one. It had like 50,000 women or something like that. 33,000 women in it, so it's pretty good. 1 cup of milk per day may increase the rate of breast cancer up to 50%. Wow, an increased
Right.
risk of breast cancer. That's scary to hear. Not to be, but like, the fact that so many people drink milk and think nothing of it. Higher intakes of dairy milk were associated with greater risk of breast cancer. Full fat and reduced fat milks produce similar results, especially high whole fat milk. Man, this whole list is insane, by the way. Like, it's impressive what you got here.
Thank you.
Uh, um, this is a good one for prostate cancer. I already saved a couple of them, and I have like 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10 tabs. Higher incident of fatal prostate cancer. Plant-based foods may be associated. Men who already had prostate cancer and consumed more than 3 servings of dairy products had a 76% higher risk of total mortality and a 141% higher risk of prostate cancer-specific mortality compared to men who consumed less than 1 serving per day. Okay, let's move on to eggs. I think for dairy, there's a lot there, but I already saved a couple. And
Okay.
egg consumption was associated with increased breast cancer risk among the European, Asian, and postmenopausal population, and those who consumed more than 2 and less than 5 per week. Okay, that's an interesting one. Actually, this one seems even better. Men who consumed 2.5 or more eggs per week had an 81% increased risk of lethal prostate cancer compared with men who consumed less than 0.5 eggs per week. Right, I like numbers. they say things. We found an association between higher intakes of eggs and increased risk of several cancers, oral cavity, and pharynx. Wow, I didn't even know because eggs could do that. Upper aerodigestive tract, colorectum, lung, breast, prostate, bladder, and all cancer sites combined. I don't believe this. High egg intake was associated with a significantly increased risk of ovarian cancer. The thing is, I don't believe it because I don't think like oral cavity cancer or can have any relation to eating eggs. I don't think there's anything inherently negative in eggs about that if you keep it in your mouth, that right, because oral cavity is within your mouth. So I'm thinking it's like an association, a bad association or something. But just out of curiosity, I will copy it because I'm curious to look into it. I'm just gonna put a look at this. Okay, high intake was associated with significant risk of ovarian cancer. Most large prospective observational studies show that vegetarian diets are at least mostly cancer protective. Both papers are based on large.
So now there's going to be some fish parts. Now all the fish parts are pretty much the same, though they might be, like stronger studies. So you got the perspective cohort study. The fish is overall, it seems like fish might not be too damaging for your health, except for pollutants like PCBs and stuff like this, mercury. So there's a lot of that, though. I don't know how much, but all of these are saying basically the same thing.
Yeah, the mercury and yeah, I would stay clear of this, to be honest, because it just gives people an occasion to move the goalpost and be like, well, what if you grow fish in a pond of water, in a farm or something where there's no mercury poisoning, like not in the ocean.
Well, if they do that, health wise, we could say, yeah, eating fish apparently health wise might not be that bad. If not, it, might even have some health benefits, but that doesn't take care of the ethical or environmental component of it, and the fact that we can get those health benefits without consuming fish by eating a vegan diet.
That's a good point. Yeah. All forms of mercury are toxic. Yes. US EPA conducted a national statistical survey of fish tissue contamination at river sites and analyzed samples. Okay, PCB was the most abundant being measured in 93. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. That's a good one to have. I think, like in some cases, it's good to show that actually it is pretty prevalent. From eating fish for subgroups of women who are young and or premenopausal. Let me open this one up. I'm just curious if it actually is something. I'll copy this and look at it. That's interesting.
Okay, and if you ever want to if you after the live stream, if you want to go back and open up this document and look more at these on your own time, you can do that too.
I think that's what I want to do. Yeah, because I copy them now, but I think I think I need to look into a lot of them because it's difficult, like I like you have so many of these, huh? Like I have I have around 20 or 30, and I still sometimes get overwhelmed by how many I have, but you have way more.
Yeah, and we might run into some of the ones that you have on my list. But in any case, all right, yeah. So if you want to keep scrolling, and now we got heart disease. We'll spend a minute or two on this, and then we'll move to vegan diet for kids and for athletes.
Well, but with okay, so plant-based diets have shown protective effects. 41% risk reduction for cerebrovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease incidence had a 29% risk My God, I'm sorry. Cardiovascular disease mortality had a 13% risk reduction, while ischemic heart disease incident had a 24.1% reduction, but with a high heterogeneity. Ischemic heart disease mortality showed a significant 32.1 risk reduction. Okay, this is an umbrella review, and sounds like a promising thing. I mean, I have for heart disease something totally different. I haven't seen this one so far. The vegan diets were associated with reduced concentrations of total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, and protein, apolipoprotein B effects that were consistent across various studies and participant characteristics. Oh, this is a good one. They always mention the apoprotein, the apoprotein. I never know how to read it because apparently that's the issue of risking. Yeah, this I have also plant-based diets with decreased total cholesterol and LDL, but this isn't. Yeah, because they'll just say, well, decreasing LDL isn't necessarily good. LDL can be isn't necessarily bad. Sorry, LDL isn't necessarily bad. It can be good.
Well,
Um,
I mean, I don't know though, because you might want to keep that one or open it up, because there's another study or more down below in this same section that just talks about how LDL raises cholesterol.
I have it
And
exactly the same. I have this particular one. I have it also, and
uh-huh.
under it exactly this how LDL does it. Yeah, how LDL is not good for heart disease. The problem is that I have had this in conversations with people, and when they mention, oh, let me come back to the tab. And when you mention like LDL or cholesterol, they're like, no, that's not true. That's been debunked or something like stuff like that, which is obviously not true. They just move like they don't
Well,
listen to the science of it, regardless.
I feel like some of them won't listen to anything, but some of them will be convinced by some of this stuff. They'll be like, "Oh wow, I didn't know that," or you know, or
Oh wait, I saw the nation.
you can ask them to like bring up their phone and try to find counter studies. That might be too much and getting away from the ethics and stuff, though. But
Thank you, Marcos, for the donation. Vegan forever. Thank you so much. Vegan forever. Never stopping. Appreciate it. Um, can you say that again?
oh, no worries. We can. Let's see. So I'm
Oh,
just
I
looking
think I already
for.
have one with like this. Yeah.
I'm looking for some of those keywords like vegan. Yeah. So this is the twin study.
Yeah. By the way, the studies that I'm copying, I'm not going to copy the ones that I have because I already looked through those. So I'm going to try to merge them because
Well,
otherwise there's no point in having to.
okay, yeah, if you're gonna merge them later on, just so long as like you're taking into account the studies that you already have or that you're skipping right here, that you might put them in the top 10 list, right?
I mean, this document, I'm going to go again through it again.
Okay,
Like
cool.
it's
Okay,
a
okay,
really
got
good
you.
document. I think more than anything, we need to it's important also that we because everybody's looking at it, it's important that we kind of look at kind of what available studies there are because they're also very valuable. While we can categorize which ones are the top ones, I think the idea of having a list of what kind of studies there are, especially when there's like 300 of them, is very useful to know kind of what you can debunk easily or not, right?
Yeah.
A 4-week dietary intervention with plant-based microprotein containing food products instead of meat and fish reduces serum cholesterol concentrations. Same thing, the cholesterol, people don't care. A vegetarian diet is associated with many health benefits because of its higher content of fiber, folic acid, vitamin C, E, potassium, magnesium, minor phytochemicals, and fat content is more unsaturated. Compared with other vegetarian diets, vegan diets tend to contain less saturated fat. I also have this one, yeah. But it's the same thing with people not believing that cholesterol or saturated fat is bad for you.
I don't know. I think a lot of people do believe that or will be convinced when they see the studies. So I wouldn't dismiss it offhand, just because there's some trolls out there.
No, I mean, I'm not dismissing it. I'm just like, um, I would rather have a study that shows direct correlation between the diet and risk of heart disease rather than risk of increased cholesterol. Or you see, because like increased cholesterol also kind of implies um, a certain risk of heart disease. So then if you multiply those, if you make it common, I'm not sure if you get the same risk factor. So if you have a 30% risk of high cholesterol by eating meat, and there's a 20% risk of heart disease from having high cholesterol, then your risk is way lower, right? If you eat meat of uh, of heart disease, because you multiply the risks, right? It would be
I don't
20%
know.
of 30%.
I don't
I
know,
mean,
but
somebody correct me if I'm wrong, by the way. I might be wrong. I don't know. But that's how I see it, right? Like, because all the people that eat um, saturated fat, 30% of them, well, of all the people that eat saturated fat, 30% of them will have high cholesterol, and of all the people that have high cholesterol, 20% of them will have heart disease. That's how I interpret that result. That's why I try to look at direct correlations.
okay. Well, I think we can probably move on to vegan diet for kids and athletes, unless you want to see more.
Interesting. Also, I'll go slowly a bit through it because it's pretty useful.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, see, a plant-based diet may confer protective effects against atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease by increasing endothelial protective factors in the circulation or reducing factors that are injurious to endothelial cells. Like, this is cool. Um, it's a bit more direct correlation. Okay. A higher ratio of animal to plant protein diet and higher meat intake were associated with increased mortality risk. Among generally healthy adults, contrasting plant with animal intake while keeping dietary. There's a lot of these studies where they show that if you replace plant protein with animal protein, animal protein with plant protein, you get better outcomes. I'm curious if there's any studies showing the opposite. Like, if you have if you are eating plant protein and replacing it with animal protein, if you're showing negative results.
I doubt it,
So do I, but it would be
unless it's a
useful also.
poorly, unless it's a poorly planned vegan diet.
Yeah. Okay, higher LDL, higher effects was seen with higher risk of incidental cardiovascular and all-cause mortality. This is also good one. Eggs and cholesterol associated with higher all-cause cardiovascular and cancer mortality. Okay, yeah, there's a lot of it. Okay, let's go to the other ones, because you're right. If I go to them, yeah, there's diabetes. Meat consumption increases the risk of type 2 diabetes. Is this like general meat, or is it red meat?
You'll have to open it and find out, but because I can't remember all 350
Yeah,
studies.
yeah, yeah. How dare you not remember all of them?
My bad.
Uh, so what's this? Um, yeah, it's okay. It's not the best, this one. Red meat and poultry intakes were associated with higher risk of type 2 diabetes. Now, if I go through them again, we end up in the same place where I have to go through each of them. Let's see if we can find some that sound good from just looking at the men and women who consume meat had a 95 to 97% increased risk for diabetes compared with those who avoided meat. Okay, I'm gonna check this one. I'm curious if they um, controlled for all the factors, like healthy meat consumption and stuff like that. It's 41 for. Okay, this one's also kind of nice. Prospective cohort studies. Okay, but let's go to you said to the children, because I actually had the high blood pressure. We've already kind of gone through it. Stroke, it's a whole thing. Kidney disease. Yeah, red meat always. liver disease, red meat, of course. And okay, for kids. Perfect. A completely plant-based diet is suitable during pregnancy, lactation, infancy, childhood, provided that it is well planned. I'm assuming this is, um, okay, this is practical tools for healthcare providers. So this paper contains recommendations made by a panel of experts from Scientific Society for Vegetarian Nutrition after examining the available literature concerning vegan diets during pregnancy, breastfeeding, infancy, and childhood. This is actually a good one to have. Huh? It gives you also, it gives also some useful hints for pregnancy and yeah, lactation and infancy. With appropriate food choices, vegan diets can be adequate for children at all ages. A vegan diet can be healthy for children. This is the Cleveland Clinic. Vegan children had lower fat mass, blood cholesterol, and fasting glucose level. Vegan children had higher intakes of some beneficial. Okay. In contrast, those following were consuming higher than recommended amounts of saturated fish. Yeah, this is another one of those.
This is the British Medical Journal.
Yeah. It's one of those where I'm like, did they account for being healthy? Because it says those following an omnivorous diet were consuming higher than recommended amounts of saturated fat. So what if they what if they consumed the recommended amounts of saturated fat or sugar or the recommended amount of fiber?
Okay.
Right? Like,
Good
yeah,
question.
so it's kind of, yeah. Consuming plant-based diets is safe for and effective for all stages of the life from pregnancy. Okay, plant-based diets. I think I have also this one with the plant-based microbiota. Oh, it's also another guidelines for health professionals. Okay, I'll save it anyway. I think guidelines for professionals are pretty useful because they're like, hey, if they're good for professionals, they should be good for you. The American Dietetic Association, Dietetic Canada. There is sufficient evidence from well-planned developed studies to conclude that children and adolescents grow and thrive well on vegetarian diets that are well designed and supplemented appropriately. Vegetarian diets, though, By the way, stop me and tell me if you think ones are better than others or something.
And can I get a check from the chat as far as how is my video? Is it still super choppy? Is it super cloudy? Should I up it from 480 up to 720?
Can you move a little bit?
I'm moving.
Your video is good now. Your video is good now as you're moving.
Okay. Cool. Is it super cloudy though?
No. It's actually quite all right on my
Yeah.
end.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it says video is great, Martin.
Okay. Thanks.
Vegan diets are beneficial to children's well-being, and all animal-based diets are potentially unhealthful. It's an interesting. Okay, this doesn't work. This study.
That's the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations.
Okay,
It
this
doesn't
one's
work
a good
though.
one. No, but this one,
Oh.
children who follow the meat-free diet grew at least as well as children, because they always say, oh, they're not going to grow or something. Bullshit like that. Both vegan appears normal. Perfect. Also going to. Wow. By the way, so many sources here. Pediatric brain appears to be associated with. Interesting. A substantial risk of pediatric brain tumor appears to be associated with relatively high levels of maternal cured meat consumption. Actually, I'm curious about. I'm just gonna copy this one, and I'm interested if that's true. Looking at it. Look at this. Okay. Um, I'm looking. High frequent milk intake another increases risk of advanced prostate cancer. Yeah, I mean it's kind of the same as before. Higher intake of animal protein, in particular red meat, was linked with a greater risk of gestational diabetes mellitus. By contrast, I think that's the type 2, right? Because we've learned in the other one. By contrast, higher intake of vegetable protein, specifically nuts, were associated with a significantly lower risk. It's a good one for pregnant women. Okay. Cause milk consumption in infancy is associated with an increased risk of developing iron anemia. Oh my god, so much. My brain is almost.
I know, right? Well, we're
Yeah,
almost done because we'll just finish up with this
yeah,
vegan diet for athletes. Go ahead and look
yeah.
through that, and maybe I'm gonna be back in 1 minute. So while you're looking through this, you might want to read it out loud, whatever you're reading in your head, so that the
Yeah, yeah,
audience.
yeah, yeah. Sorry. It's my head is a bit. In addition to health benefits, a plant-based diet may provide performance-enhancing effects for various type of exercise due to high carbohydrate level and high concentration of antioxidants and phytochemicals found in plant-based diet. Sure, not necessarily mean a vegan diet. An athlete can meet all their nutritional needs with food derived from plants without any loss in physical performance. Let's see that. That's an interesting one that we should look at. Um, Recreational athletes can maintain athletic performance on both omnivorous diet and two diets that are predominantly plant-based. Predominantly, I don't like that. A vegan diet does not seem to be detrimental to endurance and muscle strength in healthy, young, lean women. In fact, our studies show that submaximal endurance might be better in vegans compared with omnivores. I think that's the thing that I also noticed with my gym as I've been. I don't. Is Chase still here? No, Chase is not here. So I'm talking to the chat right now. So I think that's also what I noticed as I've been transitioning 3 years ago, whatever, and started being plant based. I noticed that my endurance has gone up a lot at the gym. Um, I mean, I already had high endurance before, so now I'm insane now. Now you can throw anything at me. I just endure it. I'm the endurance master. So the vegan group even showed advantages in nutrient intake in comparison to the other groups. Yeah, but nutrient intakes can be adjusted for. Vegan diet can be designated to achieve the dietary needs of most athletes satisfactorily. Okay, this is a good one. Based on the abundant body of scientific evidence about vegetarian vegan diets in relation to health, it has been proven that the tremendous health benefits delivered by vegan diets are compatible with health and form a prerequisite for sports performance. A well-planned by vegan diets are compatible with health and form a prerequisite for sports performance. Interesting. I'm guessing because of the endurance factor. A well-planned vitamin B12 supplemented and diligently implemented vegan diet promotes building muscle mass and strength and a good state of health for athletes. Moreover, on this solid basis, vegan diets applied to sports-related dietary tactics are comparable to high performance in competitive sports. I actually have been thinking a lot about this because I thought one of the advantages that we'll see in the future, not far away, maybe not in the next FIFA World Cup, but soon, is that the teams that will adopt will require that their players follow a plant-based diet will have better performance, especially in sports like soccer or sports where you run a lot, where endurance is important, because literally endurance, I think, is very it's so easily you can so easily notice that your endurance increases on a plant-based diet and so fast. And it's for me, it's been like 3 years now, and my endurance has increased tremendously. And I wasn't even like eating that many animal products, so yeah. A high protein exclusively plant-based diet is not different than a protein matched mixed diet. Oh, I like this. In supporting muscle strength and mass accrual, suggesting that protein source does not affect resistance training induced adaptations in untrained young men consuming adequate amount of protein. This is really nice, and it's also, the problem is that it's with untrained men, um, because yeah, that's that when you're untrained and you start resistance training, your body will kind of grow regardless of the type of protein or amount of protein. Like it's just much easier. The effect of plant-based diets on cardiovascular risk factor, particularly plasma lipid concentrations, body weight, and blood pressure, and as a part healthy lifestyle reversing existing, may provide a substantial measure of cardiovascular protection. In addition, plant-based diets may offer performance advantages. They have consistently been shown to reduce body fat. Okay, yeah, because plants carbohydrate they foster. Yeah. Plant-based diets appear to be a viable options for adequately supporting athletic performance while concurrently contributing to overall physical and environmental health. A nutritive vegan diet can be designed to achieve the dietary needs of most athletes satisfactory. I think I copied this one before. I think I saw it. Yeah, vegan diets can be designed to achieve the dietary needs of most athletes satisfactory. This one's repeated.
Oh, it's a duplicate.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, with this one. 0192 0192. Yeah, should I remove it from here? Well,
I
actually, I
don't
can't
think
because
you
I didn't have
can.
it.
Yeah, you don't have editing
Yeah.
privileges.
A vegan diet can be suitable for a suitable alternative for ambitious recreational runners. Why not? It's a good one for runners to look into. That's the thing. Endurance does increase. Let's see. The vegans had the problem is like muscle building. I think most people, the vegans had more favorable glucose and lipid homeostasis profiles than omnivores. Vegans had significantly lower abundances of potentially harmful, such as precressols, litocholic acid, BCAA as aromatic compounds, and higher occurrence of potentially beneficial metabolites. Vegetarian endurance athletes, cardiovascular, no vegetarian. I don't want active vegetarians, sure, but I don't care vegetarians. Based on the evidence in the literature that diets high in unrefined plant foods are associated with beneficial effects of overall health, lifespan, immune function, and cardiovascular health, such as diets likely would improve athletic performance as well. Likely. I don't like that word. Plant-based protein has similar effects compared to whey protein on body composition, strength, power, and aerobic performance in professional, semi-professional futsal players. What's futsal, by the way?
No clue.
Okay, I gotta Google that because I've never heard of that, and now I'm like, futsal. Oh, it's like football, but in a gym or something like that. Okay, omnivorous and vegan diets can support comparable rested and exercise daily rates in healthy young adults consuming a high-protein diet. This translates to similar skeletal mass adaptive responses during prolonged high-volume resistance training, irrespective of dietary protein provenance. Oh my God, these words. 190 words a month, but have enabled recreational as well as professionals to achieve top performance in their chosen disciplines. Consumers to change the sum. No, I don't like vegetarian diet. No significant differences in muscle growth. I actually have this one also, but I'll just copy it either way because I don't know what I'm copying or not. So I already have a pretty big list to look at. Jesus Christ, it's going to take me hours. Vegetarians and omnivores show significant, but vegetarians who don't care. Trend towards improved performance after vegetarian for both endurance and strict exercises has been shown. Oh, this is an interesting one. Vegans may experience more favorable changes in delayed onset muscle soreness levels following acute resistance exercises in comparison to omnivores. This discrepancy in delayed onset muscle soreness markers may indicate enhanced muscle recovery in vegans. Okay, nice. I also copied this one.
Cool.
I think we're done.
Look at the first one of mental health, though. Just
a
for
dietary
fun.
intervention improves depression, anxiety, and productivity in multi-center corporate setting. Yeah, the problem with this, like, I don't know. I'm very skeptical about these. No significant associations. Um, like this is a good one. See, no significant associations between the consumptions of a vegetarian diet and depression or anxiety. Because I don't think like being vegan necessarily improves your mental health. I think it can improve it because you're doing something new, right? You're yeah, and maybe again, like the same thing as endurance, where I think you're just your whole blood flows better.
Mm. Okay, cool. Um, scroll to well, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. But just for reference, everybody, at the very bottom or
Oh,
close
I'm
to the
sorry.
very bottom of that list is another document. Is the link to another document that I made called 100 Vegan Environment Sources, and so it's a similar document to what we've been looking at, except it's about the environment and how a plant-based diet is way better for. Yeah, go ahead and
The
click on it real
environment.
quick just for a second, because this is another really good source for everybody, and we can post both of those in the chat if you
Yeah, give me a
can.
second. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll actually put them in the. I'll put it in the chat, but I think I won't think it. I don't think it stays in the chat, so I'll just put it in the description. There's no point in putting it in the chat
Okay,
right
cool.
now. Yeah, takes 25 calories of plants to make 1 calorie of bees. That's a good one. Okay, yeah, that. This is all very useful, by the way, Chase. Very, very useful.
Cool.
And I think I actually was discussing to somebody with somebody in one in my comments today that they were looking for something like this. So the fact that you have these is already pretty impressive.
Nice.
And yeah, Leon says it's quite common knowledge that your gut microbiome improves a lot on a proper vegan lifestyle, and that your gut biome status is linked to depression risk. Yeah, there is a link. It's not very well known though, so it's hard to like. It isn't. I don't think it's established science that there's a link between gut microbiome and depression. I mean, as far as I know, it's still in the beginning stages of it. But correct me if I'm wrong. Good stuff, Chase. Thanks for putting that together. That's awesome.
Cool, man. Thanks for going through it with me. And I look forward to the document that you end up making that has some of the best sources on there.
Yeah,
Um,
I actually have been working on because I have the sources that I use in my videos. I use Figma, and I have a lot mm, of these print screens from the studies, and then highlighted exactly the phrase that we need from it, so that people can put them in their videos and stuff. So I'm actually working on making this somehow more available for everybody who makes videos, who wants to use these kind of sources. It's useful for them. So yeah, I'll um, I'll look into all of this, but it will take me a while. So don't, because yeah, jobs and stuff. um,
okay. So if you still have mental energy, we can
I
talk
do.
philosophy.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So, Mr. Chase, as far as I understand, you are a utilitarian, are you not?
Well, before we get into that, I was gonna see real quick about. I think we both agree about subjective morality versus objective morality, right? Um, so I think we're both subjective. Like we both believe in subjective morality. We're anti-realists, right?
Yeah, morality is 100% subjective. Yes,
Yeah, and the way I summarize that is like hitting a puppy is objectively harmful, but whether you or I care about that harm is subjective.
it's objectively harmful to the puppy. Yeah,
Yeah, and so harm is shown through the harm is shown through science, but morality is a personal philosophy. But if we agree that harming puppies is wrong morally, then we can see objectively true ways to not harm them. So yeah. Okay, I just wanted to get that out of the way because some people believe in objective morality. I did for most of my life, actually, for until just a few years ago when I dived more into it. But okay, cool. So Yeah, just a reminder to everybody, like, let's try not to disparage each other or anything like this in the chat, because I know it can get contentious. But disagreements are fine, like, so long as they're not huge. And I think that infighting destroys movements, so we really got to try to be respectful with each other. Does that sound good, Chip?
Sounds good to me. Do you
Okay, good.
wanna like do you wanna have like debate style thing, or do you wanna have
No,
just a conversation on it?
just a conversation.
Okay, I appreciate it. So I actually, I asked ChatGPT because I'm not smart or anything. I'm a regular Joe. And I asked ChatGPT to actually was discussing exactly this. I started with what is utilitarianism, what is veganism, and can someone be a utilitarian and vegan, um, which was kind of some of the research that I was that I did here. So can you tell me, like, because so I never thought like utilitarianism strictly refers to maximizing overall happiness or well-being or reducing harm or stuff like that. I always thought like utilitarianism just refers to some form of a calculation or anything. So can you tell me like what is your philosophy
Yeah.
that you follow in general, so that we start from there?
Yeah, so my understanding of utilitarianism is trying to maximize well-being and minimizing suffering, death, and exploitation, or rights violations, or however we want to put it. Just more of the good, less of the bad, the harmful, less of the harmful, and trying to preserve life and stuff. So but while respecting individual rights as much as possible and practicable, but like, if we have a trolley problem and there's one pig, like, okay, let's say that the trolley's coming down the track and it's gonna kill 100 pigs unless I pull the lever and divert the trolley onto the other track where there's gonna be one pig that's killed. I think the morally best thing to do there is to pull the lever and kill the one pig to save the 100 pigs. And I do this with a vegan activist as well. I would kill one vegan activist to save 100 vegan activists, because of lots of different reasons that I think, are pretty clear, that, there's just so much more suffering, so much more loss of life, so many more families deprived of their family member who died, all these different individuals. It's just so many more tears and bloodshed. And so yeah, it's unfortunate. I don't want to kill the pig, and usually we're not on a trolley problem, so we don't have to kill one pig or 100 pigs or anybody, but
Yeah,
that's kind of it right there.
but I think that's an easy one, right? Like I think everyone would say that it's morally preferable to kill one pig versus 20 pigs, of course. uh,
No, no, like, deontologist, that's against deontology. And, like, there's a
I mean,
lot of
it's not
there's a
against
lot of
deontology, but go on, sorry.
sorry, I mean, like, to my understanding, that is, deontology. And there's a lot of people in vegan chats, who are very firmly against that understanding of utilitarianism. They would say, "No, it's wrong to kill one, no matter how many it saves." And
um
I agree that it's still wrong to that one individual, to
yeah,
take their life. But it's like there's only two options here. There's two, I have to choose the least immoral option, and I have to save as
yeah.
many lives as possible.
Okay, okay, I see what you mean. Okay, well, then in that case, I don't agree with you. Because while obviously I would say, if you look at it from the outside, from an outside's perspective, I could say, yes, killing 20 pigs is worse, or it's better to just kill one pig instead of 20 pigs. Let's, just for the sake, let's call them individuals, not pigs. I don't know, it feels a bit weird to call them pigs. So let's say individuals. I would kill one individuals versus 20 individuals. I would say, obviously, from the looking on the outside, it's one is worse than the other because the number is bigger than the other. But I don't think that harm or exploitation or suffering, or all of these are in any way additive. So I don't think that the harm that 20 pigs or 20 individuals, Jesus, I just said it, I don't think that the fact that 20 pigs would get killed is 20 times worse than one pig getting killed. So I think, in a sense, that intentionally harming anybody is wrong, regardless of if your intention is to harm one person in order to save 100.
But is it the best option available to us, or is the best option to not pull the lever and let more individuals die?
But that's the thing, right? Because I the reason why I'm a deontologist and why I believe it's this way, it's because I value experience more than anything, right? Like subjective experience. So I don't think that, like, to one pig dying or one individual dying for the sake of 100, they lose their whole subjective experience. They lose their whole universe, so that others would die. So of course, if there, in all these cases, we're talking about lack of consent, right? Because if there's consent, there's no question there. But with lack of consent, I don't think is fair to even one individual. I would say, if there's a situation where 20 individuals are tied to a train track, and you could save 20 individuals by killing another individual, either by pushing them off of a bridge or by pulling a lever and directing the train to killing that one individual, I think you are doing an immoral act when you're killing, because the situation is something where you've been presented with. It's not something that you chose, right? Like, if you actively chose for 20 people, then yeah, it's also immoral. But if you are presented with a situation where you can choose to kill an individual to save 20, I don't think it's fair. I don't
Okay,
think it's moral.
so yeah, well, it's not fair to that one, but I
Yeah,
still think it's the best option available. And like, what if we, add more to that number? So instead of 20 individuals, it's 1,000 or 1,000,000. Would you let 1,000,000 individuals die, um, for the sake of not killing one individual?
yeah. It may seem weird, huh? But like, I don't know. Like, first of all, I want to differentiate between what I would do and what I would think it's
What you
moral.
think Yeah, what you think is the best moral option, because I agree that, like, it's a tricky gray situation where
Yeah,
you're doing something immoral by killing, but is it
yeah,
justified? Is it still is because you're saving 1,000,000 lives if you do it, and saving 1,000,000 lives is a moral action in my value system. Saving 1,000,000 lives is more of a moral action than killing one person is immoral.
yeah. I see. I don't. I can't. That's the thing. I can't quantify it. Huh? I can't. mm, I can't say that one is. I can't say that killing one individual versus killing 1 million individual is better. I think taking any life is bad. It's immoral regardless, because you're destroying one universe. And I think that's why I think that subjective experience matters, right? Because like, we tend to think of it as additive, as it's so much worse that we kill 1 million individuals or 100 individuals. But I think that the reason why, when we discuss harm, and we discuss sentience with people, is because sentience matters to the victim, right? It's about the victim perspective. And when we discuss about this relationship between individual performing the action and the victim, I'm trying to formulate the idea. So I'm saying
It's
this by
okay.
now. Yeah. So I think that either one victim loses their universe, or 1 million victims loses their universe. I think the act is just as immoral, because the reason why one person losing the reason why that one person losing their universe is bad is because that one person is losing their universe. Just because 1,000 others are losing their universe, it just makes the action like, to me, it's they're all parallel. They're not in series. They don't add up. They're just parallel things. Yeah, it just feels like a lot of immoral actions to kill 1 million individuals, but I don't think it's one worse than the other. Like,
Okay.
If you think about from the perspective of the victims, of course, because like if I were to ask you in this situation, um if from those 100 there's a trolley problem, 1 versus 100, but then somebody randomly gets killed in the 100 or something like that, I don't know, just a random idea, like do you think like the way I see it, it's hard for me to formulate my ideas, but the way I see it, it's because of this perception of the victim. Like perceptions don't add up, right? The perception of 100 victims being exploited or killed don't equal to, like, it's just the same as one as the perception of one individual going through that, just in parallel. It doesn't add up to more suffering, it doesn't add up to, you see what I mean?
I just disagree. Like my moral intuitions are telling me that I value 100 individuals more than I value one individual. I still value that one individual, but if push comes to shove and there's a trolley problem, like then I've got to do what I've got to do to decrease suffering and increase well-being to the best of my ability. And
uh,
and it does matter that there are going to be a whole bunch of extra victims, a whole bunch of extra family members who lost their loved one.
but why, like, why is it that two people suffering is worse than one person suffering? Like, let's just put it this way, let's just put it 2 versus 1, which is the easiest, right? Why is it that two people losing their life, not even suffering, let's just put it killing directly, why is it that
Mhm.
two people being killed is worse than one person being killed? Because
Because that's more death, and I'm against needless death.
yeah, but the whole point of it is, right, when we assign, well, at least when I talk to people on the street and I talk about it, it doesn't matter what I value, right? It's not the value I place on them, it's the value that they have on their own. So the fact
I,
that I kill two individuals, it's just as bad as I kill one individual, because to each individual who loses their life, the value that they have on their own is equal to the value, like,
I
you see what I mean?
kind of
Like,
see what you're saying, but like at the same time, I gotta stick with the position that I'm with. I think makes more sense to me. Just imagine the carnage of you know 1,000 people getting run over by a train, as opposed to just one person, like the screams of all the people, like it would be a fucking major tragedy, you know,
for you, but it's
for
a
me.
major
Yeah,
tragedy. But I would
it's
say, like, okay, I love that you called it this way, because think about it this way: it's a major tragedy from you, the outside. Because you place like this value on it. 1,000 people getting massacred is a fucking huge tragedy because we put that value on it. It's a massive tragedy. But one person getting massacred, we don't see it as such a tragedy. Yet to those victims, to each of those victims, each of those 101 victims, the tragedy is equal, right? So I
yeah,
would say the value that they lose is equal. So that's why I'm like, that's why I'm a deontologist, because if you think from the from the perspective of the victim, then deontology makes more sense. If you think, if you ask me,
except that there's more victims on the other track,
it
and
doesn't really
I
matter, right?
it
To me,
does to me, it does to them, like because there's potential victims that could be saved.
yeah, I kind of see, and I think that me from the outside, I could easily choose one or the other, as I said, right? Like, because I place value, but and I
So you
would
would just
argue
flip
that,
a coin,
so no, I wouldn't flip a like,
or you
if
wouldn't
somebody,
kill the one, you wouldn't pull the lever, right? Because pulling the lever is wrong no matter the outcomes.
so let's put it this way, Chase. If there was a stranger that was tied to a train track on the other side, and on the side that the train is going towards is a friend of mine that's tied, I would probably pull the lever, because I value my friend just as I value my friend more than I value a stranger. But that doesn't make it my action more moral, right? Just because I add more value to that individual doesn't mean that
Yeah,
it's more moral.
I I agree with that, because for all we know, your friend might be a bad guy and the stranger is a good guy or something.
Exactly.
But or if you just make them the average guy, you know, they're both good guys or whatever. But yeah, we'll get into that too. My value calculator. We're coming up on that. But I was gonna say like the other thing. So it just seems like you and me just have different values or different interpretations of things and stuff like that. So I think we're understanding our terminology. We're both on the same page in our terminology understanding. I think so. That's good.
Yeah.
But we just have different intuitions morally. Um, and
But
but I'll keep thinking about what you said.
I wonder why, though. I wonder why, right? Because for me, the reason why I align with the ontology more, so obviously, looking it from the outside, it makes more sense to be utilitarian in a lot of cases because um, it just makes more sense, right? As you said, less suffering, more like who doesn't want that, right? In the whole world, we want less suffering, we want more joy. It's obvious that then you could say a utilitarian thing makes sense. But for me, what has happened is that I have been in situations as a person, as a child, where I have been the person who had to suffer so that others can have joy,
Yeah.
and I never
Well,
enjoyed that. I never really liked that. Like, um,
w- well, and
as
to
a
be clear,
child.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that I was a child. Maybe as an adult now, I would be like, I would try to be a bit self-righteous about it, or try to tell myself that, hey, at least I'm doing something good or something. But um, it never feels good. Like you being in the position of the victim, regardless of the cause, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, and to be clear with my version of utilitarianism, I'm not saying that if 10 people get laughs out of bullying one person that makes that bullying okay because it's 10 to 1. That's not what I'm saying because that isn't you know because the 10 are getting an unjust laughter that's actually not beneficial for them. It's not in their best interest. It's a base joy that they're, you know, a base pleasure that they're engaging with that they shouldn't be doing at the cost of somebody else. And that one person being bullied, like their suffering amounts to more than the joy of the 10 because I think that pain is more intense than happiness. You know what I'm saying?
But how can you because I understand your example, right? It's the whole what if 100 men rape a woman and they get a lot of pleasure from it, right? Like, does that make it moral, right? Does that make the action moral if they get a significant amount of joy and the woman gets, I don't know, pain from it, but not even that's the problem with utilitarianism, I think, and the reason why it's also so difficult to be a utilitarian. And I do like the word difficult because while in theory it would make sense, in practice it's so difficult to quantify these, right? Like, uh, who's to say that uh, if you do the same thing to me that you would do to somebody else, something malicious, right? Like, let's say punching, right? Like, if you punch me or if you punch somebody else, or maybe not even let actually, punching is a good example. If you punch me or punch somebody else, who's to say that the physical and emotional harm that I suffer is equal to what they suffer? And that's the number one, comparing that, right? So already putting a number into that, and then how do you, like, let's say you can quantify that, you can measure it somehow, and then you can measure the joy that somebody has. How do you compare the measurement of joy versus the measurement of harm? Like, is one unit of joy equal one unit of harm?
Yeah, so I think that just because like utilitarianism has some gray areas or some bullets that it has to bite sometimes, or some difficult calculations to make that like we don't always have all the information and we're not gods that can see the future, so it can be difficult. But I think we have to make calculated decisions. That's what I put on myself is to just do the best I can with the information I have, and my abilities to rationalize and stuff, and do what I think is best for everybody. But like I said, you know, suffering is more intense than happiness, and so I haven't done exact math about like how many units of
Yeah.
suffering equal, but I also care about individual rights and not violating those just because somebody gets a laugh out of it.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Because
But
like I said, it's a base pleasure that's, selfish and unjust as opposed to, just some more transcendental type of pleasure that helps others and the self.
so I think utilitarianism has definitely. When I discussed this with Kai, I was saying the same thing. I think utilitarianism has its role in making decisions about systems and people and strangers and stuff. But like, I think at the end of the day, it's all about our value system, right? Like, I think because like there might be people who uh like the conversion of unit between harm and pleasure might be subjective to each person.
Yeah,
It might be that 1 unit of pleasure for me equals half a unit of harm for you, so that means
yeah.
I right. So
But remember, we're coming up with a subjective moral framework. So, but I guess the other
fair,
thing I'll
that's a good
say,
point.
yeah, I guess the other thing I'll say is threshold deontology is another option that's kind of in the middle between utilitarianism and deontology. You might know a little bit about threshold deontology. It
Yeah.
basically is just saying, like, well, I wouldn't kill one to save two people, but I would kill one to save 1,000 people or some other number that they're just, may not be sure of what the number is. But at some point, like, I got to do something.
Yeah, but I think like we need to do get in this also. We need to differentiate between what I would do and what I would say it's moral. Because as I said, like
Yeah.
I would definitely save my friend, but I don't think it would be moral for me to save my friend. So,
Yeah. I
so,
guess the
so
other go ahead, finish up.
so I was gonna say that that doesn't. I think like mm, it's a little bit of a cop out. The threshold deontology. It's a little bit like, yeah, it sounds insane. It's insane. What do you mean you wouldn't kill one person to save a million? That's insane. It's like, wouldn't you kill one person to end all of animal agriculture? Wouldn't you kill Trump? Wouldn't you kill the worst person in the world to save animal agriculture? Come on, that's insane.
Let's not answer that one, but for YouTube's sake.
No, I'm
But
sorry. I didn't mean that Trump is the worst person in the world. That's why I corrected myself. I meant like somebody who you consider the worst person in the world. Would you kill that one person to end all of animal agriculture? Right? I'm like, I mean, it sounds logical that I would do it, but I would never think it's moral.
well, again, I just think like it may be immoral to do one thing, but if it serves a greater good, if it is in the furtherance of a greater moral goal, then so be it. But one real world application of utilitarianism versus deontology and all this stuff is because some people are like, oh, well, when will this ever happen? This is a waste of time. Talking about all this stuff, hypotheticals about, trolleys and all this. But, one clear example is undercover investigators for the animal rights movement. Many of them, like working with Mercy for Animals and other groups like that, have to get a job where they're working in a factory farm or a slaughterhouse, and they've got a hidden camera on them, and they have to work there for like 3 months or whatever to get
Yeah.
enough footage to show that these abuses are routine and that the boss knows about it and stuff like that. And so they have to participate in the cruelty themselves. And think about how hard that must be for an animal rights activist to start brutalizing and killing little baby animals, but that's what they have to do to get the footage and to get the footage out to us so that we can show it to people. You know what I mean?
But
So
I don't think that's still moral, even if they do it. I don't think it's moral that they do it. I
I think
think it
it's
is.
I think it's immoral to kill those animals, but it's moral to do this investigation and get the footage out. That's more moral to me.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because um like, would I kill three animals to save 100? Like you said, the same thing, right? Like, I don't know. I don't. Like especially if it's as you put it in this situation. I don't not would I do it. I'm sorry. The question is if it's moral.
Or is it the best moral option? The best option, you know
But
what I mean, morally speaking, because I'm
but
granting that there's immorality in the process. I'm granting that.
but then I think we need to distinguish two things here, right? Like actions and processes. Um, because while some actions it's pretty clear that they're moral or immoral, the processes, I guess, is where it becomes a bit weird. But I don't know if processes can have a moral or immoral stance.
I'm not sure. I would think
So,
so. Like what the actions we're taking in order to fulfill something can be
yeah,
moral or
that
not. Usually,
yeah, that's what I mean. An action can, like, if you kill an animal, it's immoral. I think regardless of the consequence of it, right? Like maybe if you're it's in self defense, I would say it's still immoral unless you're I still think it's immoral kind of regardless taking somebody's life. Um, but you can justify it in certain areas, right? Like when you judge an action whether it's moral or immoral, it's easy. But when you put a lot of actions, when you put, as you put it, a person going into a slaughterhouse killing multiple animals just to shed a light and to show footage, and which eventually might save more animals in the end, um, is that justified? Is that moral or immoral? No
it's
clue.
just.
Like
I just think it's one of the we're in a shitty situation where we got to resort to desperate measures. Desperate times. Um, but do you want to move on to the next section?
what is the next section?
My value calculator. So, like,
Tell me
imagine that
about
there's
your
a
value calculator.
okay, so imagine that there's a burning building and there's two individuals in the building, and I only have time to save one. Which of the individuals do I save? If either, maybe I just let them both burn, or I flip a coin, and just that way, I'm just like whatever it lands on, I'm saving one of them. So that's a moral thing, but um, honestly, like there's a few things I factor in between those two individuals. Things like lifespan, contribution to society, level of sentience or consciousness, their social relationships, and whether or not I have a relationship with them or not, which is like you were mentioning, you would save your friend over a stranger, and that's not necessarily moral, but that's a more of a bias, but it probably would be a thing we would factor in. But I think the other things are more, so like so we can take a few examples, right? Like a vegan teenager versus an elderly vegan stuck in the burning building. Who am I going to save? And I could either flip the coin and just save one of them, or I can factor in things like imagine they're both good people, but so they both, their contribution to society is equal, and their level of sentience or consciousness is equal, and they have the same social relationships, and let's say I don't know either of them, so I have no relationship with them. I'm going to save the vegan teenager over the elderly vegan, because the elderly vegan is going to die soon anyway, and the vegan teenager has their whole life ahead of them, and they can do a lot more good with the I guess contribution to society is tied into lifespan, because they can do more with more years, more good with more years on earth. So what do you think
I see
about that?
what you mean. Um, I still, it's interesting because I actually, as a, I've been thinking about this even long before I was vegan. Like, would I kill a young person or an old person? Or would I save, sorry, would I save a young person or a old person from a burning building? Um, Granted that I kind of know all the factors that you said, but I think if I put myself in the shoes of the victim, I think both of them deserve to live equally, regardless of the fact that one lived more so far and the other didn't. Or maybe that's actually the only thing that makes sense. How much more life experience they had. But even life experience, I would say, I had what, I'm 37, and there might be people who are older. Well, my parents are older than me, and I think I have more life experiences than they did. in a sense. So I kind of enjoyed my life a little bit more than them, and I did a lot more stuff than them. So it's that's the problem when you come to these calculations. That's the problem, that you because what I try to do is put what I value in the shoes of the victims, and then I try to measure, okay, which one has more value based on my subjective measurement of value, like you said, right? And I don't know if, like, because you mentioned the value in society and all of this, like, to me none of that matters really, because which society even? Like, what if they're in US, what if they're in China, what if they're in North Korea? Is that
Hmm.
like how much value they have in the society, and also how do you measure value? Like, it's very, that's the problem with this, right? So for me, I would say it's the easiest way for me is to do it is to say they're both equal, and the one that I reach first is the one that I go with. And if they're both exactly there, then
Yeah, they're
I don't
both,
know.
yeah, like, and we can control for any of this stuff in the hypothetical. We can just say they both live in the US or whatever. And so the contribution to society would be equal or whatever. You know, and yeah, like somebody was asking in the chat or saying that like the younger person would have an easier chance of saving themselves because they're more athletically fit. It's like
Yeah,
that's escaping the hypothetical, though. That's not what we're talking about. That they're gonna die. They can't get out in time unless I save them. They're trapped, right?
yeah.
But anyway, so
and
another,
and I have equal chance of saving both.
yeah, exactly. They're,
Right, because like,
yeah,
because I would like, I would honestly, like, my instinct would always say the one that I have the highest chance of saving. That's my base instinct.
yeah, but it's
Because
equalized.
yeah, if that's already equalized, then I mean, I guess the most moral thing to do would be to take it randomly, or well, not even I don't know, the first person on the left, the first person on the right, whatever,
You'd have
randomly
to,
then, because
yeah, flip a coin then. Okay.
yeah, something like that. That's how it seems moral to me, because both of them deserve to live equally, and all these other quantifiers don't seem like important enough to justify taking somebody's life or not taking somebody's life.
Well, and it's not taking their life; it's just not saving them. But the end result is the same: they die by
Yeah,
fire.
yeah,
But
yeah. But like,
okay.
I couldn't say to a person like, "Hey, you didn't do enough in society, therefore I let you die," or something like that. Like, I don't think like that's fair. Like, in any case, because I don't think I have done enough in society. I don't think any of us can be seen as we did enough in society, especially as a subjective measurement of how I measure that you did enough in society.
Well, I mean, like, I value you more than a serial killer who goes around killing vegans. Like,
But let me put it this way, Chase. Do you think that, because the one thing about morality is that we agree it's subjective, but we also agree that we want it to be as close to objectivity as possible, right? Like, yes, we acknowledge that morality is according to our own wants and needs, but or our own experience, but we also think it's better to somehow remove ourselves from the equation, and that's why you make calculations out of this, right?
well, but I include myself in those calculations. So, like, the amount of suffering that I would go through from killing, especially if I had to slowly kill an animal or a human, like, that would, I already have PTSD and bipolar, so like, that, so I factor in how much I would suffer. And so I might not be willing to kill, um, like I might actually, well, it would still, I don't know. This is hard to say. I'm, in some instances it might look more like threshold deontology for me because I still think it would be utilitarianism, though. It's just I'm considering myself as well. So like, though I might be willing to kill one to save 100, I might not be willing to kill one to save two because of the also the suffering I would go through. Does that make sense?
I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah.
The
So
utilitarian calculation might not even out because I would have a whole bunch of lifelong trauma after killing somebody.
okay, yeah, but aside from what you would do, the question is morality, right? Like whether it is or it is not moral. And what you're saying is that in a situation where you could kill one or two people, you would have a hard shot at measuring it, because there would be the possibility of two people suffering regardless, right? It would be the person doing the action and the person who you're killing, if you're killing one person, versus the other two people who you're killing anyway. But I mean, theoretically, you're still killing two people, so you're still. But like, let's say you are not responsible for the two killings, right? Like the classic trolley problem. But then at three people, this whole thing blows on its head, right? Like at three people, you're already, the calculation should already be done for. Where you're, I'm sorry. The reason why I'm mentioning is this, because I think, like, to me, everything that I try to do when it comes to morality seems, and I strive, like, I don't believe that it is subjective, but I try to make it as objective as it can be, because it's not that I don't trust my subjective experience, but it's that my subjective experience can be flawed, right? Like variables that I control for, like, as you said, contribution to society is something that maybe I measure one thing one way and somebody else measures another thing another way, right? And who's to say that my value is better than their value?
Well, I am, and you are, because morality is subjective, right? So, like, but also, like, some things are more rational than others. Some things use the laws of logic, and some ignore them and use fallacies instead. But somebody might not care about using fallacies, and well, then we just have to stop them. You know what I mean? Like, we like, if they're going to be a danger to society, we have to stop them. But
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I guess
I
I
mean,
will. Go ahead.
I guess that's why I'm a deontologist, is because I believe that the closest you can get to objective morality is being a deontologist, because all the other calculations that you make are impossible for us to make, are
Well,
absolutely 100% impossible.
I'm not trying to make well, I mean, I guess I would be trying to make perfect calculations, but I know that it's going to fall short. But like, I think I can make pretty wise decisions usually, if I'm, try hard enough. But I'm not trying to create an objective morality. I realize this is all subjective. I'm just trying to make it as reliable and concrete and you know um free of contradictions as possible.
I see what you mean. Like what happened to me was, I come from Romania, where it's very much like United States. The system of laws and the system of punishment is the same. It's very much a system where we punish people who do wrong things. That's kind of what we do. That's kind of how the same in US. And as I came to the Netherlands, I actually lived for I'm exaggerating, 5 years next to a place that was rehabilitating people. It was in a neighborhood, in a safe neighborhood, for where people would walk their kids, and there were people who were being rehabilitated there. Whether it was for addiction, where it was for any other causes that normally in Romania I would have seen people go to jail for or be secluded from society for. So my moral system, my moral judgment was telling me that these people need to be punished, that it was immoral what they were doing. But coming here and seeing this, and seeing not only that um, it has better outcomes eventually, just kind of tells me that my moral system was flawed, that I wasn't necessarily knew what the best values were, right? And if we want to, because at the end of the day, the reason why we create morality is to create a better society for all of us, right? I think morality is strictly tied to relationships and society for all of us, right? I don't know. So if we want that, I think getting it as closer to objective morality as we can is better.
I disagree, but just because I don't think objective morality is a thing that exists, nor should it be something we're striving to achieve, but that we should
Yeah.
just work within the framework of subjective morality and rationality and logic. But in any case, the other example would be a pig versus a fly in a burning building. I think it's better to save the pig because so if we do the calculator that I have, lifespan alone, like a fly only lives for like 2 weeks, right? Versus a pig lives for like 12 years. So that's more sentient experiences that the pig would have, a lot more. So just on that basis alone, but I also think a pig is more like has more enhanced social relationships, might have a higher level of sentience or consciousness, because of their higher intelligence, because of a more developed brain.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, that makes sense. Also, I don't think you can see a fly, or maybe in a in a
No, no,
burning
let's
building that you could. But let's say if you
no,
could,
I
right?
can see them. They're right there, and I can save them. I got a cup in my hand, and I'll just go and get them out just as easily as I could pick up the pig.
Yeah, it's very it's and both of them are sentient, right? So, I would be a hypocrite to say that I would save the pig rather than the fly, um, because I think all sentient life matters equally. But I mean, I would probably do that. I would probably save the pig instead of the fly. But again, I don't know if I would call that a moral action. And just to make things clear, I don't think objective morality exists. But it's hard for me to express what I mean. I mean, like,
Mhm.
uh, I want morality to be not influenced by my subjective experience. I want morality. Of course, the rules that I make out of morality are subjective. The rules that I follow are subjective, but I don't want the rules to be formed by subjectiveness. I don't know if you know what I mean. Like, in a sense, I pick the rules that I follow, but I don't want the rules to be created by my subjectiveness, right? Because rules, my subjective experience could be totally different, as I just explained, by coming from two different countries, by coming from two different societies. So if I create rules based on one or the other, and I say that one is moral, like I could literally just like it happened here, that I could say one thing is moral or immoral based on rules created similar if I had come from one country or the other. So I'm sorry if I'm dabbling
It's
now.
okay. Well, what about a pig versus a bed bug, dude? Because bed bugs, in addition to a short lifespan, let's talk about their contribution to society. They fucking suck people's blood. They suck, and if I save them and send them out somewhere else, they're gonna suck somebody else's blood. Now, no fault of their own. They're just trying to eat. I get it, but like, damn, get off me. I'm trying to sleep, right? So I'll kill bed bugs. I've tried to not kill bed bugs, and it doesn't solve the fucking problem.
I agree. I've killed mosquitoes. Same thing, right? It's annoying. The mosquitoes are annoying, but
Okay, so
uh,
you value a pig more than a bed bug.
I mean, the question is, if a pig would fly and wake me up in the middle of the night, and I could easily kill the pig and not have to clean up after them, I don't think I would have a problem killing the pig. Also, just like I wouldn't have a problem killing the fly. It's the same thing to me. They're both equally like the problem, of course, is all the other stuff, right? Like, I could killing a pig implies way worse things, and I wouldn't call either of the actions moral. Let's just put it this way: I wouldn't call me killing a fly or me killing a pig moral in any sense. They're both just as immoral.
Well, I think it's moral for you to take care of your own mental health, and if bed bugs are eating you to death, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, in a it sort of feels like a self-defense thing, but then could I just move to another bed? Could I just take that bed outside one during the day and get another bed? Like, could I move that mosquito during the day gently so that I don't kill them? Like,
But
obviously, I
again
could do.
but again, there's that tricky thing of, like, if you move them somewhere, they're just gonna feast on somebody else, and is that moral?
We're reaching the whole
We are.
calling carnivore thing, huh?
We're getting there. Everybody stay
Yeah.
tuned, it's about to happen.
Um,
Alri
yeah, but they have just as much as a right to live, just as I do, just as anybody else does.
I
Like,
don't know.
I don't think that anybody who was born in a certain way, who has certain traits, deserves to live less than anybody else. I think that if they're a nuisance to somebody, if they're a nuisance to you, you have a right to, I don't know, defend yourself or isolate yourself from them. But I don't think necessarily that it's moral for you to go ahead and intervene and say that they're a problem.
Well, again, with the burning building thing, like, I value a vegan activist more than I value an animal abuser. Like, Um, now, some animal abusers can change. I used to be an animal abuser. Um, so, but if somebody is, and actually, there was like, if you looked at me, you would think there's no hope in that dude changing, but I did change quite intensely. So, um, but I was in my 20s and stuff when I made that transformation. And, if you've seen like decades and decades of the same violent behavior from somebody, and now they're in their 50s or 60s and they're still as angry and violent as ever, are they likely to change? But in any case, um and then there's like the whole, a pig, like, would I save a pig versus saving a pig abuser? um Even though the pig abuser has a longer lifespan and might contribute to society, like human society, in some good ways. They might be nice to their friends and family or whatever, or even donate to charity, but they're, abusing pigs and other animals in their free time, or like as their job, or as their eating hobby. Um, I kind of feel like I value the victim more than the oppressor, but the oppressor can change. And so it's a tricky thing, but
Yeah, I'm trying to think if if I have two distinct systems in my head, if I have a subjective system where I subjectively would choose one or the other, or one that is, as I said, striving to be as not subjective as possible. I'm not going to call it objective because it's never going to be objective, but as not subjective as possible. So the reason why I'm asking this is because, like I think John said the same thing. Did Osama bin Laden have the same right to life as us? I mean, yes, everybody has the same. Even Hitler had the same right to life as us. I think if if you put yourself in the position of the victim, um, I'm sorry, not in the position of the victim. I think like maybe it's difficult in situations like Osama bin Laden or Hitler, or people who are um, who clearly have killed so many people and have not been good people in that sense, to measure it. But like, let's say if Osama bin Laden had 1,000 people crying after he died, and he killed 100 people,
well,
right?
I
Like,
would say those tears are unjustified. Those tears are unwarranted. You know, and the tears that someone cries is nothing compared to the lives lost.
I mean, true. Like, but you're. I don't think suffering is that big of a deal. So I don't think suffering is necessarily that important. But what if 1,000 people then commit suicide because Osama bin Laden died? Let's put it this way.
I'm not sure. I mean, people who are that dedicated to Osama bin Laden might be better off dead. For
Yeah,
us, at least. Like, we'd be better off without him, perhaps.
yeah, but like, I think like depending on your base values, um, it it serves to show it that it's extremely subjective, right? Like that's extremely subjective, because I see, like, the thing that I like about the ontology is that it allows me to correct myself. It allows me to not fall into the trap where my values are more important than somebody else's values, right? Uh, which to me is,
I don't know
it's
about that.
well, it does, because in a sense, if I look from the perspective, like in that case, right, like there's these two camps, right? Let's say Russia and US, they're both enemies, right? If you're in the camp of, I'm not even sure that they're enemies, but let's just call them enemies, right? If you're in the camp of Russia and your uh, US attacks Russia and kills, I don't know, 100 people, and Russia attacks US and kills 100 people, and both leaders are to blame for, and maybe you hear one perspective or the other perspective, you might be incentivized to think that one was morally justified and the other didn't, if you're on one side, and if you're on the other side, you might think the otherwise, right? But how which one would you say is more morally justified? Like if you had two conflicting opinions, literally one person saying that's the bad person and the other person saying that's the bad person, because both of their leaders, both of their bad people killed the same amount of people on the other side or something like that.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you phrase it again?
Trying to phrase it, I'm I'm having difficulty to explain. I think what I'm trying to say is that when we come to these subjective values, right, like especially political stuff like Osama bin Laden, like I think we're always getting into the same thing where who's to say that one person is worse than the other, right? Like US did a lot of awful shit in the world, right?
Yeah,
Yet
yeah.
yet US is nowadays seen as the good guy, right? In the if you think about it that way, right? So is it justified for Russia to invade US if Russia sees US as the bad guy because of they look at the bad things that US did and they think it's way worse than whatever goods they did?
Well, I mean, it might be justified under some bad reading by the Russians, I would say, from my perspective. Like if, I mean, as much as the US is still, and we're getting really political with like geopolitical
Yeah,
fucking
sorry. Yeah, yeah.
international wars and shit. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that, but like
Yeah, me neither.
diplomatic relations and shit. But I just think that the US like is not doing as bad as they were currently. I mean, we're still funding the IDF, the Israeli military, which is dropping all kinds of bombs on Gazan babies. But you know, so I'm frustrated about that. But and I'm not trying to
Get it.
hype up America, even though I live here. It's like no, I'm anti-war for the most part. But like yeah. So, anyways, maybe we should
I
get
guess
back on veganism.
yeah, I guess my point was the reason why my point is because all of the factors that you measure um, and you do these calculations, and I come back to the same thing. I think these factors, while I agree with you that maybe we should take these factors into consideration, I think these factors should remove any should at least try. You should at least try to remove subjectivities from these factors, right? The subjective, the idea of subjectiveness in you shouldn't be in you saying what is which action is moral or not, like which individual action, because you're doing this whole calculation, which individual action based on this calculation is moral or not, but rather which one of these has more value than, oh fuck it, I'm lost, I'm sorry,
It's
it's hard
okay.
for me
It's
to
okay.
explain, it's hard for me to explain, it's hard to explain.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm working through it too. I think
I
that
feel like let's put it this way: if you have four actions that quantitatively you say they're becoming moral because one is plus, one is minus, whatever calculations you do, right? I think that all of these four actions should be as objective as you can, and the subjectivity matter should come with you doing the calculation, right? With the calculation itself. I don't think
okay.
I think like because right in this moral framework that you follow, the additive is the only objective thing in it,
Yeah. It, it
whereas and
sounds
everything else is subjective.
it sounds like you're just trying to remove the bias, which is good.
Exactly,
Like
exactly,
so
yes, thank you, the bias.
instead of you know, so it's kind of like how I was saying earlier, when we agree or if we agree that harming others needlessly is morally wrong, then we can come up with objectively true ways of helping and not hurting others, right? Because we use reason and rationality and science to help us make those calculated decisions. Is
Yeah,
that what you're kind of getting at?
yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. I'm trying to remove the bias from it. You're right, that was a very good thing being called, right? Like how would you know that it's not biased in your subjective experience
Yeah, and
in
sometimes it will be, and we want to just reduce our bias as much as we can. Um, but even still, it's still subjective whether we're valuing, science and rationality and well-being and suffering, and some people don't value that shit. Some people just want to see the world burn.
Yeah, I mean, because they're biased, you know, people who want to see the world burn are usually they have had a bad experience and They want revenge, right? It's a bias. It's a thing where you're like that. I feel like morality shouldn't be based. There should be no emotions in morality, should there? Right? I shouldn't say one thing is more moral or another. Like it should be subjective. I agree that you do the calculations in some of sort in that sense because you have your own personal axioms, but none of that should be based on your emotions towards those axioms or the
Well,
calculations themselves.
well, I don't know, because like I want. I feel like if I'm void of emotion, then I wouldn't take action, even if I think something's right. Like, why would I take action unless I care? Unless I have some emotion towards it. So, and I don't want to be emotionless when factoring in, is it okay to beat children and just be like,
Yeah, but like I don't think like I think you can have emotions when you make the decision or when you make the action, but when you judge an action, when you judge um like I think like also the kind of like when you think about the judge the law, the legality and everything, we try to remove emotions as much as we can from it, right? That's why we have that's why you in US have more judges than one. That's why you need to have a unanimous agreement, I think, and some I think everywhere or stuff like that. Like I think the idea is to try and remove biases and emotions that we have because those are irrational, right? And morality, we don't want morality to be irrational. We want morality to be as rational as it can be. I think that's the word I was looking for, by the way, rational.
cool. Okay, sounds good. Let's talk about killing predators and then take some questions and comments from the chat. Sound good?
Oh yeah, I saw also Wolf sent a donation. Thank you so much, Wolf, for the donation. 100 British short hairs or 50. I think the short hairs is cats, right? I would say 50. Let's not enslave more cats. So it's all good.
All right. So yeah, like killing predators, I think it would, if we killed even a small amount of them, but definitely a large amount of them or all of them, it would lead to an ecological collapse probably that might harm even more herbivores. So like if I'm trying to save herbivores by killing lions, then like the herbivores might eat up all they might overpopulate and eat up all the vegetation and slowly starve to death or whatever. And so I'm not saying that we should intervene in that way. Plus, I would prefer, non-lethal measures like spay and neuter or catch and release, things like that. But one lion kills like 200 deer per lifetime, and it's often a slow and painful death with a lot of fear. And I'm not blaming the lion, but they are causing a lot of harm. The lion's just trying to eat, feed their kids or whatever, um, but they're causing a lot of harm. And so if there were excess predators, um, then and if there were no way to put them on an animal sanctuary or something, um, then yeah, I would kill a predator to save a innocent victim of violence who's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand why you would do that because you make these calculations, right? Like if in your moral system, because in your moral system, and this is why I think that's the problem with utilitarianism in my perspective, because in your moral system, you think that what a lion does is immoral, right? But I I don't I agree that I don't like the idea that the lion kills a prey. I don't like it, but I don't know if I can call it immoral, especially like if you agree that morality is subjective, then shouldn't we be killing individuals that do immoral things according to their own morals?
No, I mean, depends on what they're doing. Like what level of harm are they causing?
Yeah, but as we said, like measuring harm is very difficult to measure, right? It's because how do you quantify harm again? It's we reach the same place where we
Well,
because
yeah, like
you
I mean, a serial killer who specifically targets vegan activists, right?
awful.
yeah, I don't value that serial killer as much, as much as I value their victims. I would not necessarily kill the serial killer. I might try to put them in a uh you know rehabilitative prison of sorts, and but we might have to keep them segregated from society for all time. But that doesn't mean we have to mistreat them there or kill them necessarily. But if we do have to kill them, then geez.
But why? What if they think that what they're doing is moral? What if in their
Uh,
subjective morality it is moral to kill vegan activists?
well, that's when their irrational subjective morality goes up against my more rational, or at least according to me, But yeah, I like that's when they fight it out, Like we just have to sometimes we have to force our subjective morality onto other people in order to uphold our values of protecting others. But we don't always have to force our values onto other people. It just depends on on the level of harm.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. Like I understand why how you ended up with all of this, but like to me, the same thing comes to because I think if you boil it down to rational, because I think that's the word I was looking for, not objective, but rational. I think if you try to boil down every argument and try to make it to split it into, well, this is more rational, this is more rational, this is more rational, this is more rational, and you end up with a arguably more rational approach, one better than the other. I would say that's kind of what we need to do, morally speaking. So us taking a position, it's hard for me to explain, but I would say that there is, because what you said is that um, killing vegans is wrong because of all the rationale that, as we said, we trickle down and we say it's wrong because of all the things, being vegan is better than not being vegan and all that, right? Like it's obviously wrong to kill vegan activists. So then killing people who kill vegan activists, is that right?
If it has to be done, I think it's the best option, morally speaking. Even though it deprives one individual of their life, we're doing it because we have to do it because we can't like detain them. We can't tackle them or whatever. There's no time or whatever. Um, and they're gonna
What if
start. Go
for
ahead.
every vegan activist they kill, they save 5 animals? I don't know. I'm trying to insert some things there.
Yeah, it would. We'd have to like bust out the calculator, like a more advanced calculator than what I have.
Yeah, I think the reason why I'm saying this is because because when we went through all of this, I think so. Was trying to say is that my values, while I think our values kind of align on a lot of things, I think what I think is moral or immoral, I try to make it as rational or as rational as possible, or boil it down to as least biases and as most scientifically based things that I can. And I believe that absolutely 100% any deviation from it is just as wrong as a lot of deviation from it, right? So if you say that if you only ignore one study that says this is okay, or you only ignore one rational part of the argument and you make some sort of calculation, is just as bad as ignoring all of them. That's my opinion,
Hmm.
right?
Well, I
so
guess.
so
Well, go ahead.
so in that sense, when it comes down to then like um killing predators, I think we reach the same point, whereas like a calculation done on morality where there's several variables that we don't know, right? Like, is it right to kill somebody who doesn't know that they're doing something wrong? I don't know. Is to me it kind of boils down to this, where I'm like, killing predators just feels like another way of me imposing my biases, my views onto others
Well,
who.
yeah, but we do that all the time with instances of violence. We say, "Hey, you can't do that," even if it's a kid doing it or a mentally disabled person, or.
Yeah, that's true. Instances of violence, we do see them differently, and because we say that arguably violence is bad, right? But you, as a utilitarian, should say, when does violence become good, right? Like, if a lion kills a gazelle and feeds their whole family,
Well,
would
I don't
that
think that's
violence be justified?
no, I don't think that's a good thing necessarily because feeding that whole family is just gonna keep that family alive, and they're gonna go kill more deer. That lion family is gonna kill a bunch more deer, so, like, I mean, it's you know, but it
So
is
then
what it is, and I can't intervene because of the negative downstream consequences.
I see what you mean, but then, like, I wonder, because I'm sorry, I'm going to I don't think I have a lot of mental capacity left. By the way, I'm pretty
That's
tired.
okay.
But I'm wondering, like, would you kill carnists? Because it feels like carnists who you tried to approach, right? Like, people who consume animal products, who you try to approach, who you explained veganism, who you tried as much as you can to train them on the vegan diet or whatever, but they still refuse to, and still intentionally kill and harm other animals, and they will continue to do so for the rest of their life. Would you be in favor of killing them?
Well, we have to be a little careful with YouTube and stuff. So I think that a lot of people can change, and I can't tell who's going to change or not. I have some, some intuitions that certain or like some evidence might lead me to think that this person is likely to change but this person is not likely to change, but I could be wrong about that. And I think it serves the animal rights movement well for us to have hope, for our own mental health, and because it helps us do activism, like, and look better when we're not advocating for violence, but when we're saying, hey, I believe that most people are good people. They want to help. They don't want to hurt animals themselves. And so they're just disconnected from the issue. They haven't thought about it very much. And
I
we'll
agree
try
with you on
and
that one.
try and get them there.
But what if there's people who can change but won't change, who don't want to change? Because we both know that there's people like that. We
Yeah,
both know there's people on this planet who will never change, who will only change when they're forced to change. Like, the sad
yeah.
part is that there's a lot of them like that. So, like, would you
That's why
see
we have to
then?
make laws. We have to make
That's why we
laws.
have to make. Yeah. So, do you see the? Do you see them just as you see lions? Do you see them, or do you see them differently?
I see them maybe maybe worse than lions,
Yeah,
because they're smarter than lions and they ought to know better. But then again, I don't believe in free will either. So I think all of this stuff is just cause and effect, like life, like biology and life experience is what makes up what we do. And if I was in their shoes, I'd be doing what they're doing. But nevertheless, they're causing a lot of fucking harm, and that ain't cool. And something needs to be done.
I see what you mean. Yeah,
But I
interesting.
also, but like again, that's only in a vacuum of like nobody would. Oh man, you're getting me in trouble.
No, I mean, I
Like,
know what you mean, but you see, that's the thing, Chase. I think, like, I think, like, we can find obviously hypothetical situations where all of them kind of make the least sense, but then that's the beauty of the ontology. The ontology makes sense in a lot of these situations. Like, a lot of these situations, if you see them as from a deontological point of view, they make sense regardless, right? Like, you just don't harm any individual. You just don't insert yourself into a system so that you impose your morality on that system. I
but
just don't
but
think.
that's but bro, you would kill bed bugs. You're imposing your will on somebody who's harming you. So why can't I impose my will, my morals, my values onto somebody else who's causing harm to others?
Because they're harming me, right? Like, I have a chance
Right.
to defend myself. I'm involved in that situation. I'm not inserting myself into it. I'm involved into it. But would I
But if
kill
you
bed bugs for? I shouldn't
but
kill bed bugs for another person, for example.
Oh, come on. If you saw somebody beating up a kid, you'd step in even though it's not you getting beat up.
That's a good point. I would, yeah, you're right. I would step in if I would
Yeah,
see
because
somebody.
like it's defense. It's still defense. If it's not self defense, it's in defense of others, which I think is just as justified.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. That's a fair point. Yes, I would
Cool, cool.
probably. But if that kid was being like, okay, but if that kid like, okay, yeah, because then we get to this whole I see, because then we get to this whole calling predators thing, right? Like if you would intervene with a child, then why wouldn't you intervene with a prey being predated on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel that the deer is very much like a child being taken advantage of or being bullied or being attacked, you know? And the lion is just like an older kid who, you know, is like not that much older. Like they don't have moral agency to the same degree as us, if at all, but they are still, picking on somebody. And
Yeah,
it's
I
it's
mean,
for it's for their own benefit, it's for their own survival even, but it's still causing harm. It's violence. And
I'm
two
trying to think
hundred 200
because
victims per lion.
but if you would see two kids fighting, one of them is punching the other, you would intervene and stop them, right?
Yeah.
Would you kill the kid who's punching the other kid?
No, that's and because the level of harm that they're engaging in is not that intense. It's not mauling to death. And also, it seems I don't need to use lethal violence to stop the punching. Or is that what you're saying in the hypothetical? The only way to stop the kid from getting punched relentlessly over and over for eternity is to kill the puncher? Then I don't know if that's what you're asking.
Well, the way I see it is, in an isolated scenario, a lion king, a gazelle is more or less between the life of a lion and the life of a gazelle, right? In an isolated scenario, right? So in an isolated, like, let's take away the idea that there are more from, and if you take an isolated scenario, it's between the lion dying of hunger and the gazelle dying of being predated on, right?
Yeah, I would, as somebody who's been on a hunger strike for 5 days for the animals, I would rather die of hunger than get mauled to death. I think, um, being attacked, it, like, is worse than dying of natural causes.
But you don't know that. Like that's a bias. That's a bias that you have. Like that's you don't know that, right? Like if you remove your own bias from it, wouldn't you say they're
Well
kind of equal?
I mean, I was trying to, like, say the pain levels and stuff, which I think is less subjective,
I don't know.
but
Like if a lion if a lion had a shotgun and that they would kill the deer instantly.
okay.
Like because the
Yeah, I
reason why
think
I'm saying
it's
this,
still
like,
it still slightly matters, like, even though the outcomes are the same, that, like, one of the individuals is gonna die, it still slightly matters that one of them is actually imposing violence on the other, um, but again, they don't know any better. It's total instinct to attack.
exactly, it's instinct in that sense, right? So are they're not moral agents. I mean, I think that's where our views disagree, right? That's where our views disagree with all of this, because if we bring it back to the trolley problem, it's the same trolley problem. And as I said, like, to me, I don't know if killing one or killing multiple. Like if we multiply it, I don't know if multiplying it is necessarily worse, right? If you're in the same situation multiple times and you do the same thing that made you survive, I don't know if it's worse or better or whatever. You should ask yourself why you are in that situation. But if you can't escape being in that situation, then why is your life less less than all the victims that will suffer because of you? I don't know.
Mm.
To me, the deontologist position kind of makes more sense because of that. Because, like, I if I put myself in the shoe, I believe that the lion can also be seen as a victim in situations like this, right? Yeah, obviously, violence is not something that I would prefer myself. But maybe if I were in the shoes of the lion, I would do exactly the same thing, and maybe I would think it's moral to do so.
Mm. Well, I guess the last thing I wanted to say is like my interpretation of the word speciesism. Obviously, um, I don't value all animals equally. But it's not so much just because of the species that they are, but rather the traits they have, like, the lifespan, or whether or not they're violent or not, stuff like that. But because if we found a peaceful lion, then I wouldn't have a problem with that lion, like, or if we found a fly that lived for 12 years, I might value them nearly, a lot more than a 2 week live-in fly. Um, but anyway, so my definition of, or not definition, but use of the word speciesism is not to say that all animals are equal, but rather to say that we should not be needlessly violent against an animal just because of their species. We should not, kill pigs just because they're not human or not dogs, stuff like that.
So I think like the definition is discrimination, right? Like species and
Yeah,
discrimination based on species.
yeah, we shouldn't
And
discriminate if we can avoid it.
yeah, exactly. Um, I'm trying to think like um, I also think we shouldn't discriminate. But anyway, like I think that's the thing about these cases, and I think like there's such edge cases that they're difficult to say. But like, let me just ask you this: would you go around shooting lions now if you had the possibility?
If there was no um negative downstream consequences, such as like if the herbivores would be okay, like they wouldn't overpopulate and starve to death, and if we couldn't rehome the lions to put them on a sanctuary and feed them vegan meat, vegan cat food or whatever, if we couldn't do that, yeah, I'd fucking start shooting lions.
So then, would you? So then, what you're saying is like you would be okay with hunting, like people hunting lions that they say are not necessarily needed in the ecosystem.
Yeah. If we couldn't tranquilize them and, whatever. But also, I would say, like, instead of shooting them with a gun, maybe it'd be better if we shoot them with a tranquilizer dart and then kill them up close with, like, like how a veterinarian would do it with a dog, a syringe, and put them to sleep, instead of them being shot to death with a gun.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. Um, interesting, interesting, interesting. I wouldn't do it. I obviously I wouldn't like, I find myself in this whole culling predators thing um has got me thinking a lot about situations, right? Like the whole vampire scenario and all that stuff, and kind of what we do if it's. I just feel like, yeah, if I'm in the position of the victim, I obviously want to defend myself and I want somebody to defend me. But I think it's a little bit different when I live in a society of humans, because we have social contracts versus living in a different society. And I don't know if it's just my cop out saying this.
Well,
I just.
well, I mean, we don't have social contracts with little kids or mentally disabled people that could potentially be violent, some of them, right? And yet we still inflict our moral systems, our laws onto them. We would use violence to stop them if that's or I would use violence to stop them if that's the only way to stop them from causing massive harm.
I mean, probably I would also use violence to stop them if that's the only way, as you put it. But I wouldn't say that it's moral to do so. I wouldn't say using violence is the moral thing to do. Um, I would say it's just a sad consequence, sad thing that that's the only option that we can use violence. But
Well, again, like you could say it's immoral to be violent towards that offender, but it's, on the other hand, moral to save a bunch of lives, to prevent a bunch of suffering and death
yeah,
by intervening.
yeah, I would say
And if
that
you
you
don't
could.
and if you don't intervene, then it's kind of like, damn, like, I feel like somebody's, slacking on their responsibility, to as like a caretaker of the area to ensure that there's no violence going on and stuff.
Yeah, but why am I the caretaker, right? Like that's also the thing, right? I live in a society where, yeah, I can intervene in some certain situations, but the reason why we have police and the reason why we have these institutions, um, which I believe should be held to a higher standard, which I believe should have different type of training and all sorts of stuff like this, is to avoid violence, right? Like, yeah, maybe the only way I could do it is by violence and to stop all that, but otherwise I don't see any, like I wouldn't, I don't think it's in any way okay for me to intervene in a situation and to be violent towards somebody who doesn't know that they're being violent towards somebody else. Do you see what I mean?
I I don't see what you mean, because I think if a little kid got a hold of a gun and started shooting everybody, like some deranged little kid starts shooting everybody, and maybe they don't realize the consequences of their action. They think it's all a video game, or I mean, we could be talking about a 3-year-old, but like they get a hold of a gun and start shooting up the place, but they're behind a wall, and like all we can see is their head, and like we can't get to them. We literally can't get to them. They've locked the door or something, and like they're gonna keep shooting and killing a bunch of people unless we fucking shoot them in the head.
But I think there is a difference. There is a difference to it,
It
right?
sucks, right? But like,
But there is a difference to it. There's a big difference because that little kid is somehow like, I feel like, the lion, the reason why the lion does, like, if a lion would go around just killing animals because for pleasure or something, it would be like one thing, but they do it for their own survival, which is a different thing, right? So judging a lion to say like, it's not like you do have to take into consideration the reason why they're doing it, right? Like a child, if a child would be, uh I don't know, remotely controlled and had to kill people to save a billion people, like you say, would you stop the child? Then would you kill the child? Like I don't know, you
no.
see, like there's,
No, if I knew that information, then I would let the kid shoot 20 people or whatever in order to save the billion people, if the people are vegan.
yeah, but yeah, I don't know, like I feel like that maybe that's where we should stop, because I'm sorry, my brain is just melting, and if we're
Yeah,
going
it's
down the
fine.
same again. And I think like for me, the reason behind it matters. That's one thing. And another, I also, I don't want to impose my morality on other systems of beings, because I don't know, there's something there. There's just something that feels wrong about doing it, right? Like there's something that feels wrong about me going into a society of lions, into a pack of lions, into a society of zebras, into a society of nature, whatever, wherever it is, and me imposing and saying it's wrong what you do. And to which level do we take it, right? Like you're saying killing zebras or killing them, but do we do other stuff also? Do we stop other stuff that animals do that are shitty, right? Like, do we stop raping of animals from to other animals? Do we, like, if there's endangered species, do we not force them to procreate? Like I don't know, like I feel like, well, we should not force species to procreate, but I don't know, where's the line, where's that line? Why is it that all of a sudden that killing is the bad thing? It just seems overly simplistic.
Well, it's not just killing, but that's just one of the things I'm factoring in. But yeah, we can end it here though. It was fun talking with you. I know things. We have very different viewpoints on some things, but I think we had a
Yeah,
good conversation, and it didn't get heated. Even like I thought it was really
no.
great. There were some people in the chat that were lighting
Yeah,
me
I
up.
see people. They're lighting you up. Some people light me up. I see some people light you up. It's okay. At the end of the day, we had a conversation, and I mean, I know, Chase, you fight for the animals. I know you do. I know there's all these edge cases scenarios where we disagree, right? And maybe if you take definitions by definitions, whatever, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, you do fight for animal liberation, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. And so I think somebody can be a vegan whether they're utilitarian or deontologist or something else, just so long as we're doing the best we can with the information that we have.
Yeah, I I agree with that. I think
And I
everybody
was I
can be
was
vegan.
and I was a deontologist for most of my life, probably up until like 10 years ago. So, and I think it was because of remnants of my upbringing in religion, where it was like, well, don't worry about the consequences because heaven is what matters, and so just focus on not doing anything wrong to anybody, and that'll be fine. But then then I became an atheist, and I was like, wait a minute, if there's no heaven and this is the only life we have, then I want to, preserve as many lives as possible. And sometimes that means getting my hands dirty, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I'm the opposite. For me, it was exactly the opposite, where I used to be to think from a utilitarian perspective, and then I became a deontologist. So, mm, but that's not because of getting their hands dirty, but rather because, as I said, I think like from a utilitarian perspective, you can justify a lot of things, like because especially in the context, it's very interesting because it's a bit contradictory to our base, right? Because I feel like your base is, you think morality is way more subjective than I do, right? That's your base. Your base, and my base is, I think morality is subjective, but we should try to make it as objective as we can, or as least biased, or as close to objective as we can. So it's in a sense for me a contradiction, because if I want to do that, then in a sense some utilitarian calculations are required to do that. And but for you, if you think that morality is as subjective as it can be, then utilitarian calculations don't make any sense, because then if you take any perspective of any person, there can be a multitude of different utilitarian calculations. So it's interesting that, I don't know, it warrants discussion. I guess it was nice discussing it.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I look forward to the vegan health sources that you do, the list
Yeah,
you
it's
come
gonna
up
take
with.
a
That's
while to
going to be
look at
cool.
those.
Yeah, take your time, take your time. And
um I will put the two links that you mentioned, the 300 health sources and the 100 vegan health sources, the environmental sources, in the description of this video. Um, if anybody needs this kind of stuff, they're very useful. So please look at that. The conversation afterwards, it didn't get heated. We had a conversation. I would say we're both vegan. I don't think you're less vegan than me or more vegan. I don't think there's such a thing. So yeah, I think, and I see holes in my thinking and I see holes in your thinking. So I think we're both. I think that's the beauty of these discussions. Morality is, it warrants discussion, right? Depending on the perspective that you choose to view, it can seem better than the other.
yeah. All right. Well, cool, buddy. It was great hanging out with you again. I hope to see you in person someday, and maybe we'll go to a march or something and make some noise for the
That would be
animals.
cool. That would be cool. Wait, stick around. I'll end the stream and stick around for a bit before I end. Thank you so much, everybody, for the donation. Thank you, Marcos, for the donation. Martin, I didn't see you donate. Thank you so much, Martin, for the donation. I didn't mention it before. I appreciate you. Ulf, thank you so much also for the donation. Yeah, 50 British short hairs, not 100. Less animals. Yes. Ban meat. Please
Are there
don't.
I was
Go
gonna
on,
ask
sorry.
if there's like, do you want to go through any like comments or questions from the
Oh
audience?
yeah, do you? Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, do you guys have any questions or comments? Please don't, like, don't pick on Chase, and don't pick on me also. Don't pick on the both of us. Don't pick on us. Come on, be nice, guys. uh, yeah. Um, you guys have any questions? And the questions are not statements or accusations.
Well, I saw that somebody was making some anti-trans comment saying that I suck because I support trans kids,
Who
and that
said that?
was Turning
What?
Veganese said that like a half hour ago.
I mean, I support trans people regardless if they're kids or not. I don't care.
Yep, trans rights, baby. Be nice
Yeah,
to everybody
yeah. I
as much as
trans.
possible.
Yeah, it's
somebody wants me to define veganism. I'm not sure what, there's a few different options out there, a few different definitions. Like, some people say it's just an extension, a logical extension of human rights. So it would just like veganism would just look like how human rights looks, animal rights, um, with trait equalized individuals. So like, in the same way that we don't give rights to kids to drive a car, we wouldn't give rights to a pig to drive a car, but the right to be free from harm or to have freedom from violence. Um, but then there's just the definition of trying to reduce suffering and death as much as possible while maximizing well-being and the preservation of life. As much as possible and practicable, right? The vegan society definition. And then there's the original definition. I can't remember exactly how that one goes,
Yeah,
but
so
uh but yeah, basically just don't be a dick to animals. Like that's the idea of um like I don't know exactly how
I'm
to give you a definition. I might have to take some time and write out a specific definition that aligns specifically with my values.
I think it's more about because I think a lot of the times is it about harm or exploitation for you, right? Is it more about harm or exploitation? Sorry.
Well, I think exploitation is harmful, but like I think it ceases to be exploitation if it's not harmful. I could be wrong about that, but
Oh, interesting. I mean, like using animals. Then I would say using any individual against their consent is harmful. Is exploitative, or let's put it this way.
yeah, I usually don't use the word exploitation in when I'm describing veganism just because it's a lot of people don't know what exploitation really means.
That's
I
true.
might have to flesh it out more, but if I just say like veganism just means we're against, animal cruelty and killing and, you know.
Yeah, I would say. Oh, vegan gaze is here. Hey, vegan gaze. Hello.
Hello, vegan gays.
So I mean, I think we can disagree on a lot of stuff for sure. I think at the end of the day, we're all fighting for the same cause. Especially at this stage in life, right? Especially at this stage of the cause. I think that maybe when we get to like 40-50%, we might end up disagreeing on some things on veganism. But what I wanted to say is, like, let's we all fight for the same cause. I don't think you're less vegan than I'm vegan. I don't think I'm more vegan than you're vegan. And I think we should, yeah, take it easy, everybody. That's just why I'm trying to say. Because I think
Yeah.
like everybody has this approach, and I appreciate, like, if you're vegan for one definition or vegan for another definition, at the end of the day, as long as you don't exploit animals and you fight for animals to be not exploited, why does it matter? Or you call it harm. I know, but you mentioned that exploitation is part of that harm, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So if we can try to reduce that as much as possible, eliminate it if possible, but I'm just trying to be realistic, like I'm an abolitionist, but I'm just realistic that like we may never get a vegan world, but we might get way closer to it than a lot of people realize.
Exactly. Yeah. And Deem Stars, I mean, calm down, please. We're not welfareists. I mean, we're both abolitionists. We both fight for animals. It's pretty clear. And we don't. I don't think either of us agree with giving better conditions to animals. No, we want animal liberation, right, Chase?
Yeah.
Yeah, hence the name Band Meat. Hence the name. So, um, I just think, like, yeah, we disagree on some values, like we discussed in this thing, but not everything else.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I would just encourage everybody who's joining late, or if you missed the beginning of the stream, go back and check it out because we went through some really important stuff about vegan health studies. And if you look in the comments or the description, there should be links to those vegan health studies and vegan environment studies. So check that out.
yes, please do that. And I think there's people here who came to see Chase, people here who came to see me. If you're not subscribed to my channel, subscribe to my channel. If you're not subscribed to Chase's channel, subscribe to Chase's channel. And let's unite, man. You know,
Yeah,
fuck everybody else. Let's just unite and fight for total animal liberation, right? I think where we all disagree is how we get there, but we all want to get there, right, Chase? I think that's the point of it.
yeah. And I'd just like to say a little joke that xenomorphs ate my baby.
Is that the joke?
We didn't actually talk on xenomorphs, but I'm surprised because usually
Yeah,
those conversations go that way.
yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. The xenomorph. Sure. I mean, you know, let's all do activism. Please go out there and do activism. And yes, if you agree with my definition against exploitation, go out there and speak up for exploitation. If you agree with Chase's definition, go out there and speak for Chase's definition. Whatever it is, just as long as at the end of the day, as long as we reach total animal liberation, who's to say that my method is better than your method? I just believe like you do, Chase, in yours more than I believe in mine. Right? Same.
All right. Well, good times, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Stick around. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one, and thank you again, everybody, for the donation. And yeah, hey, please drop your comments if you disagree with all that we say, and drop your comments in the comment below comments and tell us you're a piece of shit. How dare you be that way or something like that. Don't be that. Let's be nice or something. Let's because yeah, you get it. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here, and have an awesome day, everybody.